Chapter 32-34. Even the two divine stones, illumination and nether glow, could not injure the Academy Patriarch at all. Su Zimo did not harp on it and changed his move. Using Tai as a brush and Yin and Yang as ink, he wrote 12 strange runes in the starry skies. 6 Ding and 6 Jia of the book, deities and ghosts shall disperse. Accompanied by Su Zimo's chanting, the 12 gods of 6 Ding and 6 Jia descended once more. Although they did not have essence, spirit, flesh, and blood, their melee combat methods were comparable to great emperors. They formed a powerful formation and surrounded the Academy Patriarch. Humph! The Academy Patriarch was calm and merely sneered. Suddenly, a deathly aura burst forth from his body. He conjured hand seals in midair and pointed towards the starry skies, stomping his feet on the ground. Heavenly cycle as tomb, undying spirits. Suddenly, gigantic tombs appeared around the Academy Patriarch. Immediately after, the tombs split open and white bone living beings crawled out one after another. The holes in their eyes emitted a dark light that was sinister and terrifying as they charged towards the 12 heavenly gods with murderous intent. Those undying spirits were only the bones of imperial lords and could not compare to the 12 heavenly gods in terms of combat strength. However, there were way too many of them. They were densely packed and crawled out of the tombs in the starry skies, trapping the 12 heavenly gods in an endless stream. That method clearly originated from the Heaven Burial Sutra. However, there was no such content in the Heaven Burial Sutra that Su Zimo cultivated. In other words, the Heaven Burial Sutra that he saw was incomplete. When Fengdu fought with him, it did not release such a method. There was a high chance that it was because Fengdu did not have a body of flesh and blood. Both sides fought fiercely and ceaselessly. They would deal with whatever came their way, and the battle grew more and more intense. Su Zimo's attacks were ferocious and he had many trump cards. However, they were all resolved by the Academy Patriarch. As for the Academy Patriarch, his 3 souls and 7 spirits were shaken and could not release his peak combat strength. For a moment, it was difficult for him to suppress Su Zimo. The battle was in a stalemate. The Academy Patriarch was in no hurry. His expression was calm and composed. His universe world was augmented by a Dao seal, so he could afford it. As for Su Zimo, the only reason he was able to stand against him was because of the secret techniques of the ancient and modern battles. Su Zimo only had 5 million years of life left. Fighting from the past to the present, 10,000 years in a breath. Every breath was incomparably precious. Su Zimo wouldn't be able to last much longer. The longer it took, the more advantageous it would be for the Patriarch of the Academy. On the road to heaven. Although the 8 great emperors of old had passed away, the war flag that carried the civilization of an era had not fallen. It was still being carried on someone's shoulder, fluttering in the wind. When the person carrying the flag fell, a second person would rush up and pick up the battle flag. The heaven-defying cultivators who walked out of the dreamlike badge were only in the form of souls. They could not last for long, and as time passed, their numbers decreased. However, there were more and more heaven-punishing cultivators on the path to heaven. Countless living beings soared into the sky from all over the 3,000 worlds. There were imperial emperors, immortal kings, true spirits, and even earth immortals and heaven immortals who stepped onto the path to ascension to the heavens. Fight, fight, fight. On the path to heaven, the sounds of killing shook the heavens and war songs echoed. Many living beings had already abandoned their lives and severed their paths of retreat. In this generation, under the lead of great Emperor Araki Takashi and the 8 great emperors of old, the living beings of the 3,000 worlds were completely awakened. They defied the heavens and attacked the heavenly courts. Even many experts from the Blood World, Tomb Realm, Lifeless World and many other worlds changed sides. The heaven-punishing cultivators of several eras finally gathered in this generation and used their blood and lives to compose a solemn and tragic song. The civilizations of several eras released their final brilliance in this generation. The 9 paths to heaven shone brighter and brighter, illuminating the night sky like 9 blazing fire dragons that coiled and spiraled upwards. The heaven-punishing cultivators who charged at the forefront carried the 10 war flags and puffed out their chests. It was as though they were holding huge torches high. Their gazes were resolute as they burned the heavens. The flames burned on the netherworld array and engulfed everything with the momentum of a prairie fire. The netherworld array could not withstand the attacks of the heaven-punishing cultivators. It was on the verge of collapse and could collapse at any time. In fact, the heaven and earth Tao seal that had originally merged with the middle world was also loosening and becoming dimmer and dimmer. The Academy Patriarch had indeed proven his Tao in the middle world. However, when the living beings of the middle world were all awakened and stood in front of him, he was already incompatible with the entire middle world. The Academy Patriarch was not only fighting against Su Zimo, but also against the living beings of this generation. What he was fighting against were the creatures of the 10,000 races that had existed for countless eras. He was fighting against the brilliant civilizations created by the living beings of several eras. He was fighting against the wills of millions of living beings from ancient times until now. The middle world was not an illusory existence. It was because of the living beings of flesh and blood, the brilliant civilizations, and the unyielding wills that the middle world of today was created. Between heaven and earth, the battle between Su Zimo and the Academy Patriarch was still ongoing. However, as time passed, Su Zimo's lifespan decreased and his body gradually emitted a hint of twilight aura. At that moment, Su Zimo looked much older than him, like an old man who was at the end of his life. The Academy Patriarch looked at the increasing wrinkles on Su Zimo's face and a smile gradually appeared in his eyes. You don't have much time left. In the midst of the battle, the Academy Patriarch still had the strength to speak indifferently. There was no hint of surrender or retreat in Su Zimo's eyes. Even if he fought to the last moment and exhausted his lifespan, he would not retreat. Spatial Seal, Immortal Tao Seal, Buddhist Tao Seal, Fiend Tao Seal, Yin-Yang Seal, Massacre Seal, Dream Seal, Time Seal, Storm Seal. Su Zimo released the 9 great forbidden arts once again and released his final killing technique. The 9 prohibitions shrouded the sky and formed a Taoist seal that pressed down on the sect leader of the Academy. A trapped beast is still putting up a fight. The Academy Patriarch chuckled and controlled his heaven and earth Tao seal to smash fiercely toward Su Zimo's 9 restrictions Tao seal. In the middle world, your 9 great forbidden arts can destroy the Lord of Hell, but they can't shake my heaven and earth Tao seal. I am the heavenly emperor and have attained the Tao of the middle world. How can your Tao seal fight against the power and will of the entire middle world? Before he finished speaking, the 2 Tao seals collided heavily and exploded with a deafening bang. A huge halo spread out in all directions. Just as the Academy Patriarch said, Su Zimo's 9 restrictions Tao seal collapsed and turned into nothingness. However, the Academy Patriarch's body trembled and the smile on his face froze. A look of shock and disbelief appeared in his eyes. How was this possible? Su Zimo's 9 restrictions Tao seal collapsed, and his heaven and earth Tao seal was also dissipating. It was gradually peeling off from the sky of the middle world. His realm was still that of a great emperor. However, the Academy Patriarch could clearly sense that he was losing control of the middle world. His heaven and earth world no longer resonated with the middle world. End of chapter. Chapter 32-35. The Academy Patriarch was still a great emperor. But losing the resonance with the middle world meant that he had no advantage in the middle world, and his combat power would be weakened. Just like the Lord of Hell and the Lord of the Heavenly Court. Although they were both great emperors, their seals could not merge with the middle world, and they could not unleash their peak combat power. This was not the only thing that shocked the Academy Patriarch. He could clearly feel that Su Zimo's aura was rising rapidly, and the power that erupted was becoming more and more ferocious and terrifying. Su Zimo was clearly in his twilight years, and he did not have much lifespan left. He looked like an old man with 1 foot in the grave, but his combat power was increasing instead of decreasing. This increase had far exceeded the Academy Patriarch's imagination and understanding. You, The Academy Patriarch was shocked and bewildered as he looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. Even if Su Zimo had a breakthrough and stepped into the Great Emperor realm, his combat power would not have increased to this extent. The clan master of the Academy immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. The Academy Patriarch looked at the sky from the corner of his eye, and his body suddenly trembled as he cried out in surprise. There were not many things in the world that could make him lose his composure. In the sky, after the original heaven and earth seal dissipated, another trace of the great Tao vaguely appeared. It was an emerald green Qinglian that was born in the chaos. Tao imprint. This was the symbol of a great emperor. How could it be? The Academy Patriarch could see through the secrets of the heavens and knew about the past and present. He knew countless secrets from Fengdu, but he could not imagine that he would see such a shocking scene. Su Zimo was just a lesser great emperor, but at this moment he had reached the heavens in one step and revealed a Tao imprint. The difference between a lesser great emperor and a great emperor was a whole realm. A dream. The sect master of the Academy bellowed, "This must be a dream. It must be my imagination." Even if he saw it with his own eyes, he could not believe this scene. Not only the Patriarch of the Academy, but also Su Zimo himself was greatly shocked. But very quickly he understood the reason. Dai Yu had described the process of confirming one's Tao as a great emperor when they were discussing Tao techniques. The great Tao was formless, invisible, and untouchable. It was the hardest to comprehend. Once he understood his own Tao, sensed it, felt the will of the Tao, and experienced the concept of the great Tao, he could try to condense his own Tao imprint in his own world. In other words, as long as one enters the immortal emperor realm and cultivates a world of their own, they can attempt to condense the seal of Tao. But since ancient times, no one had ever succeeded. Firstly, there was a huge gap between the monarch realm and the martial monarch realm. Without the accumulation of cultivation and the accumulation of time, it was difficult to have a deep understanding of the Tao, and thus, it was impossible to condense the Tao seal. Secondly, his world wouldn't be able to withstand it. A Tao imprint meant that one had already touched upon a higher level of power. This was the Tao. Even if there was a monstrously talented genius who could condense a Tao imprint, his minor accomplishment world would not be able to withstand it. It would immediately collapse and even implicate him. It was because of these two reasons that ordinary emperors couldn't become great emperors. And Su Zimo's situation was extremely special. He had just entered the immortal emperor realm and fought with the Lord of Hell, the Patriarch of the Academy. He didn't have time to sense and comprehend his own Tao. Normally speaking, he wouldn't be able to condense a Tao imprint. However, when he stepped into the true self realm and emperor realm, many ancient memories appeared in his mind. The Tao imprint that belonged to him was hidden in these broken memory fragments. The reason why he could condense the Tao imprint was partly because of the inherited memories of Qinglian. Another important reason was that the 9 paths to heaven had been filled with the will and faith of countless living beings throughout the epochs since ancient times. These faith represented the middle world. It was this endless power of faith that helped Su Zimo condense his Tao imprint. Rather than saying that Su Zimo was the middle world's Tao. Or rather, it was the middle world that chose Su Zimo. And although Su Zimo's world was only at the minor accomplishment level, it was evolved from 5 grotto heavens and could even suppress a great perfection world. It was because of this that the chaos world could withstand it and his Tao imprint could appear. The entire process could be said to be a freak combination of factors and fate. There was no Patriarch of the Academy who betrayed all living beings, no Su Zimo who risked his life to protect them, no Qinglian's inherited memories, no heaven-punishing cultivators from ancient times, no awakening of all living beings to resist. If there was any missing link in between, it wouldn't have been able to create the current Emperor Araki Takashi. The Patriarch of the Academy was also an extremely smart person. After a short period of shock, he gradually understood the reason. The power he relied on the most was already in Su Zimo's hands. The power between the two sides had been switched. The Patriarch of the Academy realized that the outcome was set and it was irreversible. He wanted to turn around and escape to the greater world. However, Su Zimo was already in front of him with the Chaos Dao imprint on his back, cutting off his path of ascension. The world that was condensed with the Chaos Dao imprint suppressed down. Boom! There was a deafening sound. With just a single strike, the Patriarch of the Academy was sent flying and spewed out a large amount of blood mist. Su Zimo stopped using the mystic skill of battle ancient and modern. According to the Fiend Master, the lifespan of an ordinary emperor could reach 100 million years. Although he had already verified his Dao as an emperor, he was restricted by the laws of heaven and earth, and there were no signs of his lifespan increasing. After coming out of the dreamlike token, his lifespan was only left with 5 million years. Up till this point of the battle, most of his lifespan was exhausted and he only had a few 100,000 years left. The current Su Zimo had white hair and looked like an old man in his twilight years. However, his eyes were still clear and his body was still tall. He no longer needed to release battle ancient and modern. He had already verified his Dao as a middle thousand. Although they were both emperors, the Patriarch of the Academy was no match for him in the middle thousand world. Against the 9 restrictions Dao imprint earlier on, the Patriarch of the Academy's universe Dao imprint showed signs of dissipating. Now that it was suppressed by Su Zimo's Chaos Dao imprint, the universe Dao imprint had already collapsed completely. The Patriarch of the Academy spat out blood with a pale face. He stood up in an extremely wretched manner and the world behind him was on the verge of collapse. He had lost. Fu, the Patriarch of the Academy lowered his head and laughed maniacally. His laughter grew louder and louder. Su Zimo, I didn't lose to you. The Patriarch of the Academy jerked his head up and pointed at the heaven-punishing cultivators on the path to heaven. Gritting his teeth, he said, if not for someone helping you and the appearance of these people, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me. Su Zimo remained silent and merely looked at the Patriarch of the Academy quietly. If not for the dream token of the evil emperor, the 8 ancient emperors in the dream token and the heaven-punishing cultivators of multiple eras, he would not have been able to win this battle. You're right, Su Zimo said, you didn't lose to me, you lost to yourself. If not for the fact that you chose this path and abandoned all living beings, I wouldn't have been able to defeat you. When the Patriarch of the Academy heard that, his body swayed slightly as though he had been dealt a heavy blow to his heart. That sentence was like a sharp sword that pierced the Dao heart of the Patriarch of the Academy. The Patriarch of the Academy chose this cold-blooded and heartless Dao that severed the 7 emotions and 6 desires. However, he was ultimately implicated by that Dao. What master of heaven and earth, supreme and the only heavenly emperor? In the end, it was all for naught. Right from the start, he was wrong. He had worked hard for half his life and exhausted everything, but he was wrong from the start. Ha ha. The Patriarch of the Academy laughed maniacally and muttered repeatedly, I lost to myself, I lost to myself. The destruction of the Dao Seal, a huge defeat, a painstaking plan that turned into a dream in the end, and the hopelessness of ascension. After this series of blows, Su Zimo pointed out the crux of the matter. The Patriarch of the Academy's Dao heart was showing signs of collapsing. Elder Xian had a complicated expression as he watched this scene and sighed. It was as if it was fated. Back then, the moment the Patriarch of the Academy fell from the 10th step of the Dao heart ladder, it seemed to foreshadow today's outcome. His Dao heart could not cross this step in the end. End of chapter. Chapter 32-36. At this point, there was no longer any suspense about the outcome of the battle between the two. In terms of battle and Dao heart, the Academy Patriarch had already suffered a crushing defeat. Su Zimo looked at the Academy Patriarch, who was at the end of his rope. His expression was calm, and there was no pity in his heart. In this war of the heavens, many people had perished because of the Academy Patriarch's ambition. If it weren't for the dreamlike token, the ancient emperors would have descended into the middle world with the war flags and turned the situation around. The middle world would have fallen into endless darkness. Su Zimo attacked again. The Academy Patriarch knew that he was going to die, but he didn't surrender. Instead, he chose to fight for the last time. The Academy Patriarch no longer had any trump cards. This battle didn't last long before the outcome was decided. Under countless gazes, the Academy Patriarch's head was pierced through by Su Zimo's Qinglian sword. His sea of consciousness was pierced, and his primordial spirit was shattered. He died. The so-called Celestial Emperor's era was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky. It passed in a flash. The Academy Patriarch had calculated everything. He used heaven and earth as a game, and all living beings as chess pieces. He wanted to control everything. However, there was a limit to one's strength. There was still a chess piece that jumped out of the chess game. Under the suppression of Su Zimo's chaotic Dao seal, the Netherworld Great Formation couldn't withstand it and completely collapsed. The Middle World regained its light. With the fall of the Academy Patriarch, it also meant the end of the War of the Heavens. It was over. The souls that walked out of the dreamlike token gradually dissipated and entered the cycle of reincarnation. With the disappearance of the war flags, heaven and earth returned to peace. Unknowingly, cries sounded in the starry sky and spread throughout the 3,000 worlds. These cries contained the joy of the War of the Heavens and also the sadness of parting. All living beings saw the ancient emperors, the sages who had once attacked the heavens, fall one by one on the path to heaven, leaving no traces behind. Immortal Emperor Ling Long experienced another life and death parting with Lin Zhan. Even Su Zimo, who had achieved the martial monarch realm, could not do anything about it. Back then, the evil emperor had promised to help Dai Yu be reborn in the Great Thousand World. It was also because the barrier between the three realms had been broken and she had broken through the limits of her cultivation level and reached another level. If not, Dai Yu would have been sent into the dreamlike token by the evil emperor like Lin Zhan and the rest. As Su Zimo watched the souls of the heaven-punishing cultivators dissipate one by one, he felt a tightness in his chest. He felt that he should do something. Lin Xuanji came to Su Zimo's side and said softly, "These people shouldn't only exist in words and memories." Su Zimo looked at the ruins in the 9 heavens. With a move, he was already standing on the heaven court. Under the control of his divine sense, 9 huge tombstones rose from the ruins of the 9 heavens and stood above the celestial court. Written on them were the 9 heavens, 9 underworlds, Dozhan, all heaven, light, darkness, star, Avicii, and Shuedai. Although the war flags of the past had disappeared, these 9 monuments carried the glorious civilizations of the past and recorded the magnificent history. They were immortal. From now on, there would be no 9 heavens. Between the middle world and the Great Thousand World, only these 9 immortal monuments were left standing. Every living being that ascended to the Great Thousand World would pass by this place. Looking at these 9 monoliths, one would naturally recall that period of time that was both inspiring and tearful, as well as the people who pressed forward courageously. Many experts came to Su Zimo's side and looked at the 9 monuments in the heaven court. Their expressions were filled with emotions. At this moment, everyone felt as if they had survived a disaster. "It's finally over." The old man with the iron crown sighed softly. After this battle, the Netherworld Great Formation had been broken and the passage to the Great Thousand World had been reopened. As long as one entered the martial monarch realm, they could choose to ascend to the Great Thousand World. The War of the Heavens has ended, but there are still 2 hidden dangers in the middle world. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. His gaze fell on the abyss of hell where the heaven realm had split open. His expression was cold. The moment he became a great emperor, the group of hell creatures seemed to have noticed something and withdrew from the battle and fled back to the infernal court. Whether it was Fengdu or the Lord of Hell, they both had almost immortal power. These 2 were still a huge hidden danger in the middle world. The beginning of this War of the Heavens was started by these 2 people. Su Zimo's figure moved, and the next moment, he was above the abyss of hell. Almost without hesitation, he waved his sword and sank into the abyss of hell. The sword chi was dense, piercing through countless layers of space and reaching straight to hell. Did he fail? Su Zimo seemed to have sensed something. His figure flickered and fell into the abyss of hell. He passed through the former Avicii hell and descended into the infernal court. To be precise, there was no infernal court here. The surroundings were dark and empty. There was no space or time. Everything in the infernal court, including all the creatures of the infernal court, had disappeared. Su Zimo spread out his divine sense and continued to explore. Not long after, he sped in a direction. After a while, he saw a mysterious flowing river. It was the Nether River. With Su Zimo's current divine sense, he could already envelop the entire Nether River. Only the blood sea in the center of the Nether River could not be explored by his divine sense. After letting his divine sense explore, he found that the Hell Path, Ghost Path, Beast Path, and Ashura Path that were originally connected to the Nether River had disappeared. Su Zimo was silent. The Demon Lord, the Evil Emperor, and the Brahma Ghost Mother had chosen to ascend to the greater world and took away their respective worlds. The disappearance of the infernal court meant that the Lord of Hell did not choose to be reborn in the middle world after his fall. The Lord of Hell should have realized that after Su Zimo reached the middle world, he had no chance at all in the middle world. He might even be imprisoned and suppressed by Su Zimo again and never see the light of day again. It was because of the painful experience of being imprisoned in the Hell of Avicii that the Lord of Hell made this choice. The Lord of Hell's departure meant that there was one less hidden danger in the middle world. However, the netherworld was still there. The heavenly court had long been broken. The Demon Lord, the Evil Emperor, the Brahma Ghost Mother, and the Lord of Hell had all left and ascended to the greater world. However, Fengdu was still there. Su Zimo stood at the edge of the Nether River and was silent. It was not only Fengdu that was different from the Demon Lord, the Evil Emperor, and the others. Even the netherworld gave him a feeling that it was somewhat different from the infernal court and the ghost world. It was indescribable. Su Zimo moved and walked toward the netherworld. Fengdu should still be alive. 2,000 years ago, after Fengdu was killed by Wu Dao's original body, Wu Dao's original body had tried to find traces of Fengdu in the netherworld, but to no avail. At that time, the War of the Heavens was imminent. Wu Dao's original body did not have much time to explore and search. This time, the War of the Heavens had ended and the crisis of the middle world had been resolved. Su Zimo had enough time to explore the secrets of the netherworld. Chapter 32-37. In the netherworld. After the War of the Heavens, a large number of souls entered this place. According to the past process, they had to pass through the gates of hell and walk the path of Acheron. Along the way, they were inevitably troubled by the imps. However, Fengdu was killed and the scene of the War of the Heavens had also spread to the netherworld. Not to mention the imps of the netherworld, even the ghost emperors of the 5 directions and the masters of the 6 great celestial palaces did not dare to make things difficult for the souls of the heaven-punishing cultivators. After Su Zimo descended to the netherworld, he distributed the spider lilies beside Acheron to the many heaven-punishing cultivators. The spider lilies could preserve the memories of their previous lives, but if they entered the 6 paths of reincarnation, there would be too many variables. It was hard to say what would happen in the end. After all, he did not have the evil emperor's methods. After sending away the souls of the heaven-punishing cultivators, Su Zimo did not leave the netherworld. Instead, he sat quietly on the calf-holding mountain and covered the entire netherworld with his divine sense, patiently searching for traces of Fengdu. Under the envelopment of his divine sense, the living beings of the netherworld were silent and all of them hid. After the War of the Heavens, Su Zimo could ascend. However, he was worried that Fengdu would make a comeback and the middle world would fall into darkness again, so he stayed in the netherworld. He sat there for 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, Su Zimo looked even older. However, the divine light in his eyes became more and more terrifying. For 10,000 years, he searched the netherworld several times and did not miss a single corner. There were almost no secrets in the netherworld in his eyes. However, he still did not find any traces of Fengdu. It was as if after killing Fengdu 10,000 years ago, this master of the netherworld's soul had already dissipated and he had completely fallen. However, Su Zimo knew in his heart that Fengdu was definitely not dead. It was only because he was in the netherworld that he did not dare to appear. As for where Fengdu was hiding, he did not know. However, there was something else that puzzled Qin Yi about the underworld. Logically speaking, There should be a record of all the souls that entered the netherworld. Su Zimo had once asked Ghost Emperor Yang Yun. According to him, there was indeed such a list in the netherworld. However, only Fendu had the right to read it. None of the living beings in hell knew where this roster was located or what it looked like. However, Su Zimo had read through all the ancient books in hell, and he had never seen such a register that recorded the past and present lives of souls. Initially, he wanted to search for the traces of the souls of Su Hong, Yao Shui and the rest in the netherworld. But now, he could only give up. On this day, Su Zimo seemed to have sensed something, and his figure flickered. This was the first time in 10,000 years that he had left the netherworld. After he left, the living beings of the netherworld were finally able to relax. They revealed themselves one after another and looked in the direction of calf-embracing mountain with lingering fear in their hearts. Heaven Wasteland Domain. Elder Tai Guan, Feng Cantion, Yaksha Fear King, and the other imperial emperors were preparing to ascend to the immortal world on this day. Many experts from various domains gathered at Heaven Wasteland Domain. Su Zimo also rushed back from the underworld to send them off. In these 10,000 years, Feng Cantion had already stepped into the Emperor realm. Although he was only at the small success stage of the Emperor realm, he could still choose to ascend to the Great Thousand Worlds. All the experts were happily gathered together, drinking wine and chatting merrily as they recalled the past, and all of them sighed with emotion. Although immortal Emperor Ling Long had cultivated to the great circle of the Emperor realm, she did not plan to ascend. Instead, she continued to stay in Heaven Wasteland Domain. Everyone knew that she wanted to wait for Lin Zhan's reincarnation in the middle world, even if the hope was slim. There were too many variables and uncertainties in reincarnation and rebirth. They could be reborn in any domain and into any race. There were billions of small worlds and 3,000 middle worlds. Waiting like this was countless times more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Zimo, when do you plan to ascend? Elder Tai Guan asked during the banquet. There's no hurry, let's wait a little longer. Su Zimo did not specify a specific time frame. He indeed wanted to ascend to the Great Thousand World as soon as possible to find Dai Yu's whereabouts. But he was really worried about his old friends here. Moreover, although he had already condensed a Dao seal, he still needed to continue cultivating and strengthen one side of the world. In the middle world, with his means, he could also obtain enough origin stones to ensure that his cultivation level would improve. Now, one side of the world had already been perfected. After experiencing the tribulation of re-establishing the heavenly courts, everyone knew the intention of Su Zimo's actions. But there were still some people who were worried. Master, your lifespan? Kitsune asked softly. Due to the restrictions of the laws of heaven and earth, Su Zimo's lifespan did not increase even though he had already attained the Tao and become the Arch. After the War of the Heavens, he continued to use the ancient and modern battles, and his lifespan was only left with a few 100,000 years. Now, Su Zimo's hair was white, and there were even a few strands of white beard hanging in front of his chest. He looked even older than Elder Xian. However, his eyes were like torches, and his gaze was intimidating. He wore a loose green robe, and his hair and beard were all white. He floated in the air, and he was untainted by the mortal world. He had a different aura. It's fine. Su Zimo smiled slightly. His lifespan was only limited by the laws of heaven and earth. As long as he ascended to the great world, his lifespan would naturally increase to 100 million years. He had to wait for an opportunity to leave without worry. After 10,000 years, Kitsune, Monkey, Night Spirit, and the others had also cultivated to the Grotto Heaven realm or boundary the Arch realm. As everyone chatted, Su Zimo also mentioned something that happened to Night Spirit back then. Night Spirit was once trapped in the evil demon battlefield, but for some reason he became the first living being to leave the evil demon battlefield in several eras. According to Night Spirit, not long after his bloodline showed signs of atavism, he was released by the celestial tribute world. At that time, there seemed to be people from the heavenly courts. He did not know the exact reason. Perhaps it had something to do with his bloodline. The masters of the heavenly courts had already ascended, so there was naturally no way to ask about this matter. After the old man with the iron crown and the others ascended, Su Zimo traveled all over the middle world, searching for traces of Fengdu. Momo and Lu Ping were always by his side. Therefore, in the various large worlds, people would occasionally see a white-haired old man in a green robe, walking slowly in the starry sky on a turtle snake. 2 Dao children followed behind him, holding a horsetail whisk in one hand and a rui in the other. That white-haired old man is the great Emperor Araki Takashi of our generation. The 2 Dao children behind him also have an extraordinary background. They are called the Peach and Willow Immortals. Of course, the Peach and Willow Immortals are the ones who resolve some of the world disputes. I heard that the great Emperor Araki Takashi is protected by 12 mighty gods. It's a pity that I didn't get to see them this time. Legends about the great Emperor Araki Takashi were spread all over the 3,000 domains, and some even spread to the millions of small worlds. After several rounds of circulation, they evolved into many myths. In the mortal world of some small worlds, there were even mortals who made statues of him, worshipped him, and received incense. For 10,000 years, although Su Zimo did not travel around the middle world, the Heaven Wasteland domain had become the most powerful force in the 3,000 domains. Not only the Peach and Willow Immortals, but also the Zither and Flute Devils. There were even people who called Yu Luosha and Nian Qi the Ghost Messenger and Divine Envoy. Regardless of whether it was the Ghost Messenger or the Divine Envoy, wherever they went, the large worlds did not dare to slight them. And after Su Zimo traveled around the 3,000 domains, he returned to the calf-holding mountain once again to guard the underworld. All ghosts avoided him, and the middle world was peaceful. In the blink of an eye, 50,000 years had passed. Chapter 32-38. After the Great War of the Heavens, the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth filled the 3,000 domains. All living beings recuperated, multiplied, and grew stronger. It was a scene of prosperity and prosperity. Although there were still many battles and conflicts in various parts of the middle world, with the Heaven Wasteland domain guarding, there were no more wars between the major domains, ushering in peace and prosperity. In the past 50,000 years, Su Zimo rarely appeared. Most of the time, he just sat on the mountain and intimidated the underworld. It was only when old friends ascended to the vast 1,000 domains that he would appear to send them off. In the past 50,000 years, some old friends ascended one after another. The monkey, night spirit, tiger, Qing, little fox, golden lion, and the other brothers. Only the monkey and night spirit stepped into the emperor realm. After all, the bloodlines of the 2 were extraordinary. Su Zimo had later investigated the bloodlines of the 2. Even in the face of his Qinglian bloodline, the bloodlines of the 2 could still erupt with a power to resist. Qing, tiger, little fox, and golden lion also had their own opportunities, but gradually there was a gap between them. And after the monkey and night spirit stepped into the emperor realm, there was a strong suction force from the vast 1,000 domains, forcibly dragging the 2 of them to the vast 1,000 domains. Su Zimo rushed back from the underworld, but only saw the backs of the 2. He did not stop them. Firstly, he could not stop this kind of power. Secondly, he had seen some records of this phenomenon in the ancient books of the underworld. According to the ancient book, before the upheaval in the Great 1,000 World, any living being that had stepped into the Emperor realm would feel the call of the Great 1,000 World and ascend on their own. They would not stay in the middle world for too long. After that turmoil, the barrier of the 3 domains was broken, which affected the operation of the laws of heaven and earth. And the scene that appeared on the monkey and night spirit probably originated from their bloodlines. It should not be a bad thing. The Yeksha king of fear, chess deity Junyu, and some other old friends also ascended. In addition to them, there were some people who, after stepping into the emperor realm, had remained in the middle world and did not seem to have any plans to ascend. Heaven Wasteland Domain. Qiankuan Academy. A girl in green came to a cave surrounded by mountains and rivers. She gently knocked on the door and said, "Sister Mo Qing, it's me." The green-clothed woman was only wearing plain clothes and light makeup, yet she possessed an air of elegance and nobility that far surpassed all other women. She was the book immortal, Yunzhu. Yunju knew that Emo Qing was concentrating on painting. Even if someone came to the cave, she might not notice it. That was why she knocked on the door. Inside the cave, Emo Qing was immersed in her painting when she heard the voice from outside. Her brush suddenly trembled and a trace of panic flashed in her eyes. Her cheeks turned slightly red and she hurriedly put away the dozen or so scrolls in the cave. After calming herself down, Emo Qing stood up and welcomed Yunju in. "What is Emo Qing Mimi doing, making me wait for so long?" Yunju's beautiful eyes looked at Yunju, the corners of her mouth curling into a faint smile. The so-called bitter wait was, of course, an exaggeration. This sentence was originally just a joke. Emo Qing seemed to have been caught doing something bad. She avoided Yunju's gaze and replied before she had time to think, "I'm painting." "Where's the painting? Aren't you going to let me take a look?" Yunju looked around the cave residence, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Emo Qing knew that she could not hide her thoughts from Yunju. She snorted and said as if she was angry, "That painting is too ugly." Yunju smiled. The two women chatted in the cave. Emo Qing would only talk more and smile more when she was with Yunju. However, during their conversation, they seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally avoiding something. Before they left, Yunju asked, "Sister, you've already stepped into the Emperor realm. Don't you plan to ascend to the Great Thousand World?" Emo Qing replied softly and lowered her head. "Sister, you know me. It's enough for me to have a place in the middle world, far away from the clamor of disputes, to peacefully paint. The Great Thousand World is nothing to me." Yunju smiled. Of course, this was only one of the reasons. "Sister, you've also stepped into the Emperor realm. Why didn't you ascend?" Emo Qing looked up and asked. Yunju said, "Perhaps there's someone in the middle world that I can't bear to leave." Emo Qing's heart trembled. "Who is it?" Yunju blinked and said with a smile, "Of course it's you." Emo Qing knew that she was teased by Yunju again, but she was not angry. She just glared at her. At this moment in the 3,000 domains, an extremely sharp sword chi suddenly burst out, rushing to the sky and tearing the sky. Even Yunju and Emo Qing, who were in the Heaven Wasteland domain, sensed it. Yunju said, "Only the master of the sword domain, Kitsune, can send out such a powerful sword will. It seems that she has cultivated to the great circle of the Emperor realm." Emo Qing said, "There are others like us who don't want to ascend to the Great Thousand World. Junior brother Su's eldest disciple has not ascended yet." Yunju sighed. She didn't ascend, perhaps because she knows that she bears the burden of brother Su's expectations. Emo Qing was a little puzzled. Yunju's eyes flashed with sadness. She did not explain but murmured, "He's leaving." Kitsune had cultivated to the great circle of the Emperor realm. The sword chi reverberated between heaven and earth, and the sword will did not dissipate. All living beings in the 3,000 domains sensed it. This kind of movement was not even comparable to a great emperor who had cultivated the Tao. In the netherworld, at the peak of the Holding Calf Mountain, an old man in a green robe was sitting like a stone. He looked like he had passed away, without any vitality. However, the moment Kitsune's sword will rush to the sky, the old man in the green robe suddenly opened his eyes. The light that bloomed from his eyes could almost spread to every corner of the netherworld. The ghosts all avoided him, not daring to look at him. As his eyes opened, the vast vitality in the old man in the green robe also awakened and burst out. The old man in the green robe slowly got up and murmured, "It's time to leave." After the War of the Heavens, Su Zimo did not have much lifespan left. The reason why he chose to guard the netherworld for 60,000 years was that he was worried that Fengdu would come back and cause chaos after he left. For 60,000 years, with him guarding the netherworld, Fengdu seemed to have disappeared into thin air and never appeared. Su Zimo was waiting for an opportunity. When an expert who could suppress Fengdu was born in the middle world, he could leave in peace. Over the years, there were people who had reached the great circle of the Emperor realm, but in terms of combat strength, they were still no match for Fengdu. It was only when Kitsune cultivated to the great circle of the Emperor realm that Su Zimo knew that he could leave in peace. From now on, the middle world would be guarded by Kitsune. Even if Fengdu came back, it would definitely not be able to withstand Kitsune's sword. Su Zimo's heart stirred. In the next moment, he had already arrived above the sword world. Master! Kitsune saw Su Zimo and bowed slightly. The two of them had never communicated about this matter, but Kitsune knew what Su Zimo wanted, so she stayed in the middle world and did not leave. The so-called passing of the torch was not only passing down some Dao techniques, but also a kind of spirit and a responsibility. End of this chapter. Chapter 32-39. This sword is for you. Suddenly, a 3-feet-long sword appeared in Su Zimo's palm. The blade was dark and the words Northern Darkness were engraved on it. There was no sharpness to it and it looked like an ancient sword that had been sealed for a long time. This sword looked ordinary, but Kitsune's martial soul was a sword. The moment she saw this ancient sword, she realized that this sword was extraordinary. This ancient sword was not without its sharpness. But its sharpness had been restrained and hidden between heaven and earth. It was like the sea of the northern underworld, unfathomable. The moment this ancient sword appeared, Kitsune's sword soul felt a trace of excitement. It trembled slightly and emitted waves of sword cries. Su Zimo said, "This sword was forged from the fusion of the patriarch of the Academy's heartless sword, the yin and yang horsetail whisk, and the 3 talents jade rui. These 3 were all great emperor divine weapons. Only Wu Dao's original body, who controlled 9 kinds of supreme flames, could smelt and even reforge great emperor divine weapons. When Su Zimo proved his Dao as a great emperor, he had already re-established contact with Wu Dao's original body. However, Wu Dao's original body was locked by some kind of power of the vast thousand world. He tried several times but could not leave the range of the Nether Blood Sea. As long as he tried to leave, that strong sense of crisis would emerge in his heart. He could only give up. As for the black-robed man in the ruins, his origin, identity, cultivation, everything was unknown. Since the last time he talked to Wu Dao's original body, the black-robed man had not spoken a word to Wu Dao's original body for 60,000 years. Even if Wu Dao's original body asked several times, the black-robed man seemed to be deaf and did not hear. The black-robed man had admitted that even he could not escape the pursuit of the vast thousand world and could only be trapped in the Nether Blood Sea. In other words, no matter what Su Zimo did outside the Nether Blood Sea, the black-robed man could not interfere. But if one were to step into the Nether Blood Sea, they might not be able to control themselves. Wu Dao's original body was trapped in the Nether Blood Sea, unable to escape. Su Zimo didn't want Qinglian's true body to be trapped in there as well. So during these past few years, out of caution, Su Zimo didn't step foot into the territory of the Nether Blood Sea. The 2 true bodies had only met twice at the edge of the Blood Ocean. Su Zimo gave the Heartless Sword, the yin and yang horsetail whisk, and the tri-talent jade rui scepter to Wu Dao for him to refine and reforge. Afterwards, Wu Dao's main body arrived at the edge of the unholy Blood Sea and returned the Dark North Sword to Su Zimo. Kitsune received the ancient sword, and in almost an instant, the sword spirit had already established a connection with the ancient sword, resonating with it. The sword trembled slightly. The Dark North Sword still didn't reveal its sharpness, but its sword intent had already merged with the heavenly cycle of stars. With just a thought from Kitsune, boundless sword intent would manifest and destroy everything. The Heartless Sword was forged with the Longevity Sword as the core. It was originally a great emperor's divine weapon. And this Dark North Sword, after being refined and reforged by Wu Dao's original body's 9 divine flames, had become even more powerful. But after Kitsune received the long sword, she didn't feel much joy. She only lowered her head slightly and looked at the long sword in her hand. She didn't say anything, hiding the reluctance in the depths of her eyes. She knew that Su Zimo was about to leave. The 2 of them parted, not knowing when they would meet again. Although Kitsune was the master of the sword world and had cultivated to the great circle of the martial emperor realm, in front of Su Zimo, she seemed to forever be that young girl in Dark North Town who had her dantian shattered and had just started practicing Wu Dao. As long as Su Zimo was present, she would feel an indescribable sense of security. Master, Kitsune was silent for a long time. She bit her lip lightly and raised her head to call out, as if wanting to say something. But she only saw Suzumo's blurry back. In the next moment he had already disappeared. When Suzumo reappeared, he was already above the Nether River. Before leaving, he wanted to take a treasure with him. Perhaps this treasure originally belonged to him. Wu Dao's original body had once seen a ball of fire in the Nether Blood Sea. Over the years, Wu Dao's original body had gone to investigate this ball of fire and finally saw its true appearance. In that ball of fire, there was a red lotus platform floating. 12 rings of flower petals bloomed like raging flames. It was actually a 12th grade lotus. To be precise, this was not a lotus platform, but a 12th grade red lotus that had already grown to its peak. Moreover, the moment Wu Dao's original body saw this red lotus, in Suzumo's mind, he recalled the 4 rays of brilliance that flashed in his memory fragments after stepping into the Emperor realm. One of the green brilliance was the present creation Qinglian. And the other red brilliance should be this red lotus in front of him, red lotus of hellfire. Back then, when Wu Dao's original body descended to hell and released hellfire, the hellfire's power had also increased. It should be because of this red lotus of hellfire. What made him even more surprised was that this red lotus of hellfire was a 12th grade. One had to know that his creation Qinglian had grown to the peak of 12th grade and had gone through countless trials and tribulations. And this red lotus of hellfire had fallen into the Nether Blood Sea. Not only did it not die, but it had also grown to its peak. Suzumo did not know how much the growth of this red lotus of hellfire had to do with the black-robed man in the depths of the Blood Sea. Furthermore, the red lotus of hellfire grew in the Nether Blood Sea and could be considered as the territory of the black-robed man after all. Therefore, for the past 60,000 years, Suzumo had not touched this red lotus of hellfire and merely allowed Wu Dao's original body to cultivate at the side so that the power of the red lotus hellfire could be improved. Now that he was about to ascend, everything about the greater thousand world was unknown. Suzumo was prepared to attempt to pluck the red lotus of hellfire. He did not want to experience what happened when he ascended from Tianhuang mainland once more. He had to be prepared as much as possible. If he could obtain this red lotus of hellfire, it would definitely be an extremely obvious improvement for him. Suzumo was already prepared for the worst. If he were to pluck the red lotus of hellfire, he might anger the black-robed man and even implicate Wu Dao's original body. Even so, Suzumo still had to take the risk. There was clearly a myriad of connections between this red lotus of hellfire and the creation Qinglian. Not only would his strength increase after obtaining this red lotus of hellfire, he might even be able to replenish some of his shattered legacy memories. The two true bodies were telepathically connected. Wu Dao's original body stood up and left the ruins, speeding towards the Nether Blood Sea. Although he seemed to be wandering around aimlessly, he was actually approaching the red lotus of hellfire slowly. All these years, in order to leave this place, Wu Dao's original body had been wandering around the Nether Blood Sea, searching for a way out. The departure of Wu Dao's original body was not sudden. Suzumo headed towards the Nether Blood Sea as well. As long as Wu Dao's original body obtained the red lotus of hellfire and tossed it out of the range of the Nether Blood Sea, the black-robed man would be helpless even if he sensed it. At most, he would vent his anger on Wu Dao's original body. "Are you leaving?" As Wu Dao's original body was wandering around the Nether Blood Sea, the black-robed man spoke again after so many years with a hoarse voice. Wu Dao's original body froze for a moment. Before he could react, the black-robed man continued, "Hurry up if you want to pluck that red lotus. What are you dawdling for?" Suzumo could not hide his intentions from the other party at all. End of chapter. Chapter 3240. Not only did the black-robed man guess Suzumo's thoughts, from his tone, he did not seem to care about Suzumo plucking the red karmic fire lotus. Even so, Suzumo did not step into the Nether Blood Sea. He only asked Wu Dao's original body to pluck the red karmic fire lotus and give it to him. The moment he received the red karmic fire lotus, Suzumo could clearly sense that Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus came from the same source. Although the two lotuses contained completely different powers. However, Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus did not repel each other. Instead, they were extremely close. Without Su Zimo's intentional control, the red karmic fire lotus attempted to fuse into his body. Outside the nether blood sea, Su Zimo sat cross-legged on the red karmic fire lotus. Blazing flames spread instantly and engulfed his entire body, wrapping him tightly within. Streaks of flames surged into his body through his pores. Another type of power surged in his bloodline. It was scorching and violent, capable of incinerating everything. The karmic fire burned karma, forged his body and tempered his bloodline. The roots, leaves and petals of the red karmic fire lotus withered gradually. On the surface of Su Zimo's fair skin, a series of demonic yet beautiful red lotus patterns appeared and became clearer. The power within his body was also accumulating continuously. After absorbing the red karmic fire lotus, Su Zimo's body and bloodline were reborn once more. This was a mature grade 12 red karmic fire lotus. The improvement it brought to Su Zimo was unimaginable. He could clearly sense that if not for the fact that he was in a middle world and was suppressed by the rules of heaven and earth, he would have broken through long ago. It was rare for the black-robed man to take the initiative to speak. When Wu Dao's original body saw that Qinglian's original body was cultivating outside the nether blood sea, he turned back to the ruins and asked tentatively, "Senior, you seem to know the origin of this red karmic fire lotus?" The black-robed man should be from the greater world as well. If he could have some understanding of the greater world before ascending, Su Zimo would be mentally prepared. Before heaven and earth were separated, there were no 3,000 worlds, no yin and yang, no space-time, and no living matter. The world was a mass of chaos. After an unknown period of time, a life was born from this mass of chaos. It was the Chaos Qinglian. The black-robed man's voice was hoarse as he spoke tirelessly. In his days, Wu Dao's original body seemed to have been swept into the river of time by his voice, and he went against the flow and returned to the most primitive and ancient times. However, there was a huge upheaval in the Great Thousand World, which caused the chaotic Qinglian to shatter. She turned into 4 lotus seeds and scattered everywhere. Wu Dao's original body couldn't help but think of the 4 green, red, gold, and black lights in Qinglian's inherited memories. There were many legends about the creation Qinglian. She was said to be the only one in the world. He did not expect that Qinglian's background was actually so great. It was no wonder that the bloodlines of the 4 sacred beasts could not suppress the creation Qinglian. The black-robed man continued, "Among them, the creation Qinglian landed in a lesser world, and after a few rounds, she was obtained by you. The red lotus of hellfire landed in this nether blood sea and grew to grade 12. As for the remaining 2, the golden lotus of merit and the black lotus of destruction, they should still be in the greater world. I don't know where exactly." The golden lotus of merit. The black lotus of destruction. The 2 lotuses corresponded to the gold and black brilliance in the inherited memories of the green lotus true body. The black-robed man said, "After you ascend to the greater world, if you can find the remaining 2 lotuses and refine them, you will have a chance of cultivating the Chaos Dao body. It will be of great help to your cultivation." After thinking for a moment, Wu Dao's original body asked, "What is the realm above the Great Emperor?" The Great Emperor is a special name given to the middle world when the 9 heavens blocked the path to ascension. The black-robed man said, "The corresponding realm of the so-called Great Emperor in the greater world is the Dao manifestation realm. They are called supremacies. Upon entering this realm, one has already touched upon the level of Dao. Therefore, there is a saying that those who enter the Dao are supremacies." Dao manifestation realm. Wu Dao's original body murmured softly. The black-robed man said, "There are 3 transformations in the Dao manifestation realm: world transformation, flesh transformation, and essence-spirit transformation. With each transformation, one's combat strength will increase tremendously." Wu Dao's original body nodded silently. After Qinglian's original body condensed the Dao seal, the world she created would indeed undergo transformations. However, he had not experienced the flesh transformation and essence-spirit transformation after that. In other words, under the restrictions of the heaven-earth law of the middle world, the highest realm one could reach was the world transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. The black-robed man said, after the Tao manifestation realm is the Tao enlightenment realm, where one will be called a heavenly venerable. Above the Tao enlightenment realm is the Tao manipulation realm, where one will be called a Tao venerable. These three realms are called the three realms of Tao. Wu Dao's original body suddenly asked, is the Brahma Ghost Mother's realm a heavenly venerable or a Tao venerable? The black-robed man chuckled and said, above the Tao venerable realm is her realm, the saint realm. As the saying goes, one's lifespan is endless and they can attain eternal life. Wu Dao's original body narrowed his eyes and digested the black-robed man's information silently. He had long sensed that the Fiend Lord and the Evil Emperor's realms were far above the Great Emperor's. However, he did not expect the difference to be this great. In that case, he would have to think long and hard before ascending to the greater world and seeking revenge on the Brahma Ghost Mother. This was the first time he had touched upon the secret of eternal life since he started cultivating. After a moment of silence, Wu Dao's original body asked, what realm do I have to cultivate to if I want to leave this nether blood sea and break free from the lock of the greater world? Tao Venerable? Saint Realm? The black-robed man laughed again like the cry of an owl. He did not answer Wu Dao's original body's question. Instead, he pointed to the nether blood sea and asked, do you know how this blood sea was formed and why it hasn't withered after billions of years? Wu Dao's original body shook his head. There was an extremely terrifying power hidden in the nether blood sea. Back then, just a drop of blood was enough to dissolve most of the power of the heavenly punishment. In this nether blood sea, one could also avoid the killing intent of the greater world. The black-robed man said faintly, every drop of blood in this nether blood sea is the blood of a saint. Wu Dao's original body was shocked. He glanced at the ruins under his feet and asked subconsciously, the corpses in these ruins, they are all corpses of saints. The black-robed man's voice was calm. Wu Dao's original body took a deep breath. His mind was in turmoil and could not calm down for a long time. The legendary saints who had endless lifespans and immortality were all buried here. What happened to cause the death of a saint? How many saints had fallen and how much blood had flowed to form this endless blood sea that had not withered for billions of years? Who could kill a saint? Countless doubts appeared in the mind of Wu Dao's original body. Saints have endless lifespans and are known to have eternal life. How could they fall? Wu Dao's original body was still in disbelief as he asked with a frown. After all, the Fiend Master, the Evil Emperor, the Brahma Ghost Mother, and the others had fallen several times and could be resurrected. Eternal life does not mean immortality. The black-robed man did not seem to be willing to explain further and merely replied indifferently. End of chapter. Chapter 3241. Eternal life did not mean immortality. Although that statement seemed contradictory, there was a deeper meaning behind it. If you want to leave this place, you'll have to cultivate to the saint realm first. The black-robed man chuckled. Wu Dao's true body frowned slightly. There was a hint of schadenfreude in the black-robed man's laughter. Furthermore, he seemed to mean that he might not be able to leave the nether blood sea even if he cultivated to the saint realm. The black-robed man said, at the very least, your cultivation will not be restricted by the rules of the three realms here and you can continue to raise your cultivation realm. Although this holy ground isn't huge, there are opportunities everywhere. Even if someone from the greater world wants to cultivate here, they won't have the chance. Even so, Wu Dao's true body did not want to be trapped in these ruins and did not know when he could leave. However, he knew in his heart that he could not leave right now and could only let nature take its course and wait for an opportunity. Thankfully, Qinglian's true body was not trapped and could ascend to the greater world to search for Daiyu. On the other side, the original red karmic fire lotus had withered completely and scattered in the underworld river, vanishing. All the power of the red karmic fire lotus had already fused into Su Zimo's body and bloodline. At that moment, two long swords circled around him. One was the Qinglian sword that was derived from the creation of Qinglian. The other was a long sword derived from the red karmic fire lotus. There were red patterns on it that resembled blooming lotus flowers. The black-robed man sat at the edge of the blood sea and seemed to be able to see the state of Qinglian's true body through the blood sea. Suddenly, he said, "I can't leave this blood sea, but I can give you an opportunity. Send the 2 swords beside you in and I'll reforge them for you." Su Zimo hesitated when he heard that. Initially, he was worried that the 2 swords would never return in the hands of the black-robed man. However, on second thought, even if there were many broken divine weapons in the holy ground where the black-robed man was, they were much stronger than the 2 swords beside him. After all, those divine weapons were weapons of the saints. Moreover, the red lotus of hellfire had been in the nether blood sea for so many years, but the black-robed man had never touched it. There was no need for him to covet this red lotus sword. Thinking of this, Su Zimo sent the Qinglian sword and red lotus sword into the nether blood sea, allowing Wu Dao to bring them to the holy ground lands. "Bring the Avicii great hell over," the black-robed man said again. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The Avicii great hell had been pierced by the heavenly punishment in the past, and had long been shattered into pieces. No one knew what the black-robed man wanted to do with this shattered hell. Su Zimo didn't say anything. He turned around and left. Wu Dao's true body was watching the black-robed man from the holy grounds. His 2 true bodies were telepathically connected, so if anything happened he would immediately know. The black-robed man first took the red lotus sword. 2 of his fingers gently slid across the body of the sword to the tip, and then he flicked it lightly. The sword trembled. The next moment, suddenly, a series of cracking sounds could be heard from the red lotus sword. It was filled with fine cracks before falling apart instantly. The red lotus sword was shattered into a pile of shards by the black-robed man's fingertip. Thereafter, the black-robed man pointed at the Qinglian sword. This divine weapon that could kill a great emperor also shattered into pieces. The 2 divine weapons were like paper in the hands of the black-robed man. The expression of Wu Dao's true body was unchanged. He knew that the black-robed man definitely had a follow-up move. The black-robed man casually grabbed a broken sword from the ruins and crushed it into powder with his palm. Thereafter, a ball of flames appeared in the black-robed man's palm and fused the shards of the red lotus sword with the powder. The black-robed man was reforging the sword. At the same time, the black-robed man channeled streams of blood from the nether blood sea into the sword continuously. Every single drop of blood that landed on the sword would cause the killing intent of the sword to intensify. According to the black-robed man, every single drop of the nether blood sea was the blood of a saint. Now that the sword had drunk its fill of the blood of a saint, it was hard to imagine what it would look like after it was reforged. As time passed by, the red lotus sword gradually took shape. The lotus flowers on the sword had already vanished and were replaced by a blood-red color. Even Su Zimo, who was standing outside the netherworld blood sea, could sense the blood chi and killing intent emanating from the sword clearly. In fact, he was shuddering in fear. The killing intent of the sword was way too intense. After all, the sword was based on the red lotus sword. Although it had undergone tremendous changes, it still maintained a connection with him. Otherwise, Su Zimo had no confidence in controlling the blood-colored sword. After the reforging of the red lotus sword was completed, it crossed the nether blood sea and arrived beside Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. The moment the red lotus sword left the range of the nether blood sea, the killing intent burst forth, as though it could split the world apart and reach the clouds. Sword World. Kitsune was refining the Dark North sword. All of a sudden, the body of the Dark North sword vibrated and hummed continuously. The sword chi was retracted, as though it was afraid of something. Kitsune looked in the direction of hell in deep thought. Holy ground. The black-robed man said, "Throw the Avicii hell in." Under the augmentation of Su Zimo's Dao technique, the dilapidated hell shrunk to the size of a fist and was thrown into the nether blood sea. It was brought to the holy ground by Wu Dao's true body. The black-robed man found a few broken blades that were extremely sharp from the ruins and smelted them. Thereafter, he fused the broken blades and the Avicii hell into the Qinglian sword to reforge the body of the sword. The sharpness of the Qinglian sword turned brighter and brighter. Not only that, the sword emitted another type of power that was extremely similar to the Avicii Hell. These methods, Su Zimo lamented internally. Not only did the black-robed man reforge the Qinglian sword, he even fused the Avicii Hell into it, causing the Qinglian sword to transform completely. Before long, the reforged Qinglian sword was at greater mastery and was sent out of the Netherblood Sea by the black-robed man, returning to Su Zimo's hands. Su Zimo wielded a sword in each hand and sensed the changes and power of the two swords. The Qinglian sword in his left hand was extremely sharp, as though it could sever everything. The red lotus sword in his right hand was murderous and filled with blood qi. After the two swords were reborn, they contained an extremely terrifying power. However, given Su Zimo's current cultivation realm, there was no way he could unleash their full power. The black-robed man's voice sounded once more. These two swords have been reforged by me and are far stronger than before. The green sword is the sharpest and is unparalleled. Since it's fused with the Avicii Hell, it can be called the Avicii sword. The blood-red sword is the #1 killing sword and is unparalleled. With the support of the karmic fire, it kills without karma. It's mainly forged with the Netherblood Sea and can be called the Netherworld sword. With the help of these two swords, you should be able to protect yourself in the greater thousand world. This opportunity was truly not small. Su Zimo asked in a deep voice, "Senior, what do you need me to do?" The black-robed man said indifferently, "You're still far from it. Take care of yourself." Chapter 3242. Senior, what do you know about this page of the Book of Life and Death? Su Zimo thought of something and took out the black paper he snatched from Fengdu. In the Netherworld, he wanted to find a book that recorded the souls of all living beings, but he did not find any clues. He had also studied this black paper for a long time but could not find a way. There were obvious signs of tearing at the edge of the black paper. Even if Su Zimo attacked with all his strength, he could not tear this black paper apart. When he probed with his divine sense, he could only sense that this black paper was the Book of Life and Death, but it was dark inside and he could not see anything. The black-robed man ignored Su Zimo's question. Su Zimo asked about some information about the vast thousand domains, but the black-robed man only replied that he had been trapped here for many years and did not know the situation of the vast thousand domains, so he kept quiet and did not seem willing to talk more. Wu Dao's original body and the black-robed man had stayed in the holy ground for tens of thousands of years and knew that the black-robed man had a strange temperament, so he did not ask any more questions. Su Zimo left the Netherworld River and returned to the Middle World. Many of his old friends and friends knew that he was going to ascend to the vast thousand domains and had been waiting in the Heaven Wasteland domain to send him off. The tiger, Qing Qing, Little Fox, the Golden Lion brothers, Yan Beichen, Mingzhen, Demonist Ji, Sky Wolf, Yunju Yang Ruoxu, Xie Qingqing, and Lin Xuanji of the Heaven Wasteland sect were all there. Everyone gathered in the main hall, drinking and chatting merrily. They tried not to talk about the departure, but there was a hint of sadness in everyone's eyes. Everyone knew that it would be extremely difficult for them to meet Su Zimo after his departure. Even if they could all step into the martial emperor realm and ascend to the vast thousand domains, it was unknown whether they could gather together. Moreover, it was so lively today. "Sai, all of you have left and I'm the only one left." Lin Xuanji pretended to be sad and sighed. "Brother Lin, are you not going to ascend?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. "Of course I'm going to the vast thousand domains." Lin Xuanji replied, "With the heavy responsibility of Enigma Palace on my shoulders, I'll definitely head up and take a look. I'll record everything in the Great Thousand World and pass it on to the future generations." Su Zimo smiled. He looked at Yunju and asked, "Is Senior Mo Qing still in seclusion?" Mo Qing didn't show up this time. "Brother Su, you're only thinking of Sister Mo Qing now?" Yunju rolled her eyes at him with a faint smile. Then, Yunju raised her hand and handed a scroll to Su Zimo. "Sister Mo Qing said she doesn't like these kinds of parting occasions, so she won't come to see you off. This is her gift to you. If you don't remember little Sister Mo Qing, I don't plan on giving you this gift." Yunju snorted. Su Zimo smiled and accepted the scroll. He didn't open it, but instead placed it into his bag of holding. Everyone drank heartily and chatted heartily while laughing without end, and they seemed to have already forgotten that they were about to part. However, all good things must come to an end. Unknowingly, the laughter was mixed with some sobbing. Although they were trying their best to suppress it, how could everyone present who had cultivated to this realm not hear it? The commotion in the hall gradually died down. The sobbing sounds became more obvious. Everyone put down their wine glasses one after another and fell silent. Young master. Momo stood behind Su Zimo with reddened eyes and a face full of tears. She reached out and gripped the corner of Su Zimo's robes tightly, as though she was afraid that he would leave the next moment. Even when the Qinglian and Dragon Phoenix true bodies ascended in Tianhuang mainland, Momo wasn't as sad as she was now. At that time, Wu Dao's true body was still in Pingyang town with her after all. But this time round she felt terrible about Su Zimo's departure. Young master, I'm sorry. I want to be happy too, but I just can't control myself. Momo sobbed. In the 3,000 realms, he was one of the respected Peach and Willow immortals. However, besides Su Zimo, he was like an obedient and kind child who could not bear to hurt others, let alone kill. Although Lu Ping did not cry, his eyes were red as well. Su Zimo had saved his life and given him a new lease on life. In his heart, he had long regarded Su Zimo as the person he respected the most. If you have the chance in the future, come to the Great Kiliacosm to look for me. Su Zimo patted Momo's shoulder gently and said gently. Momo nodded vigorously. The two of you can cultivate this heavenly sutra of creation. Su Zimo handed a sutra to Momo and Lu Ping. For the past 60,000 years, apart from cultivation, he had been guarding the netherworld mainly to deduce and perfect this cultivation technique. The Heavenly Sutra of Creation was a Tao technique that he had created by fusing the immortal, demon, Buddhist, and demon Tao techniques according to his own creation, Qinglian. It was truly a taboo mystic classic. While he was deducing and writing the Heavenly Sutra of Creation, his understanding of the Tao of creation became deeper and deeper. The world that he condensed was the chaotic world. However, since he started cultivating, most of his Tao techniques came from Qinglian and his understanding of the Tao of creation was the clearest. After leaving this taboo mystic classic, there was nothing for him to miss in the middle world. Su Zimo stood up, raised his wine glass, looked at everyone and said, "Today's gathering is not shallow. If we meet again in the Great Kiliacosm in the future, let's drink and chat happily. Su Zimo, I'll bid you farewell now." After saying that, Su Zimo downed the wine in one gulp. Everyone also raised their glasses and drank. Su Zimo took a deep breath, left the Heaven Wasteland Palace, rose into the air, and flew toward the Great Kiliacosm under the gazes of everyone. Not long after, Su Zimo came to the ruins of the Heavenly Court. Looking at the 9 immortal monuments standing tall, he bowed deeply and continued to fly. Just as he was about to leave the middle world, Su Zimo seemed to sense something and looked back. This place was separated by layers of void from Heaven Wasteland Domain. The people of Heaven Wasteland Domain could no longer see his figure and gradually dispersed. But in front of a cave residence of Qiankuan Academy, a woman stood there quietly, looking up in the direction that he left, a snow-white butterfly on her shoulder. Su Zimo paused, took out the picture scroll from his storage bag, and slowly unfolded it. It was still a portrait. However, on this picture scroll, there were 2 people, a man and a woman. The man had black hair and green robes, and his eyes were like torches. The woman's blood-red robes reached the ground, and she looked disdainfully at the world. The 2 people on this picture scroll were Su Zimo and Daiyu. The attainment of this picture was already extremely high, and there was no difference in detail. It was almost as if the 2 people inside were about to walk out of the picture. More importantly, even the gaze and charm of Su Zimo and Daiyu were completely reflected in the picture scroll. In the lower right corner of the picture scroll, there was a line of small words. "I hope that junior brother Su will find her soon, and live hand in hand for the rest of his life." Seeing this sentence, Su Zimo felt Emo Qing's feelings. She had let go and let go. Su Zimo's mood also relaxed. He put away the picture scroll, broke through the barrier of the middle world, and flew all the way. End of this chapter. Chapter 3243. There were tens of thousands of races in the Great Thousand World, and there were all sorts of strange things. Some regions were vast and boundless, and they were completely covered by seawater. They were ruled by many marine life forms. Some regions were billions of miles wide, and the heat was unbearable. Other than some special life forms and powerful races, it was difficult for other life forms to survive there. Some regions were ruled by strange beasts, and the weak were prey to the strong. There were killings and blood everywhere. In some regions, space overlapped, warped, and mutated, like a boundless maze. The large territory in the southeast of the Great Thousand World had beautiful mountains and clear waters, and it had rich vegetation. It had the most types of spiritual herbs and immortal trees in the Great Thousand World, and it was full of vitality. In a forest in the southeast region, there was an extremely wide open area. There were many huge stones piled up around it, and there were mysterious runes carved on them. It looked like a huge altar. In the surrounding forest, there were many figures, and there were many hidden experts emitting powerful auras. Senior Brother Zhou, why did Master send us here to guard this ascension altar? It's so boring. I heard that the seal of the middle world has been broken, and some living beings from the middle world are ascending. Master also sent us here to see if there are any outstanding experts who can be brought to our Xianyue Peak. What's so special about people ascending from the middle world? They're just emperors, and they're nothing in our Xianyue Peak. The two people who spoke had already reached the Tao manifestation realm. In the middle world, they were called great emperors, and in the Great Thousand World, they were called supremacies. Those who can ascend from the middle world can be called geniuses, and they have experienced many battles. If they're of the same level, our Xianyue Peak's emperors might not be a match for them. Senior Brother Zhou continued, moreover, I heard that there are people from other territories in the Great Thousand World with extraordinary bloodlines, and they even alarmed the people in the sacred grounds. When the junior brother heard the words sacred grounds, his expression changed, and he seemed to be very wary. No wonder so many forces have been guarding this place all these years. The junior brother looked at the figures hidden in the forest and was secretly shocked. Senior Brother Zhou said, we're here to complete the sect's mission. We're just going through the motions. We might not even meet ascenders, let alone creatures with extraordinary bloodlines. That junior brother said, if we encounter a talented ascender, our Xianyue Peak won't be weak. After all, we don't have a terrifying power like the sacred grounds. Fusatsu, look over there. Hearing this, Senior Brother Zhou chuckled and pointed to another corner of the forest. Two men and a woman stood in the forest. They looked travel-worn and were all Tao manifestation supremacies. Although he had changed his clothes, his face was pale. It was obvious that he had been injured and had not fully recovered. The junior martial brother glanced over and couldn't help but scoff. The primal chaos sacred land was destroyed more than 6 billion years ago. The surviving powerhouses have already scattered, leaving only a few cultivators with low cultivation bases who were lucky enough to survive. Even today, these people still have a trace of hope. They want to protect the name and dignity of the Holy Land. How laughable! This primal chaos palace seems to only have a few tens of thousands of people left, right? That's hundreds of thousands of years ago. Senior Brother Zhou smiled and shook his head. Right now, there are only a few thousand people in the primal chaos palace. The one with the highest cultivation is that Su Rue, who is at the third transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. What primal chaos palace? It only exists in name. I reckon that in a few years, they won't even be able to find a place to stay. The Su Rue that Senior Brother Zhou spoke of was dressed in a white robe. He was slightly older and had a calm demeanor. The two people from the Xianyue Peak talked and didn't hide their voices. Their mocking laughter could be heard clearly in the surroundings. Su Rue seemed to not have heard anything. His face was as calm as water. The young man on his left couldn't hide his anger and clenched his fists. The woman on his right was beautiful and gentle. She sighed softly with a hint of worry in her eyes. What are the people from the Primal Chaos Palace doing here? I don't know. Looking at the three of them, they are lucky to be able to make it here alive. Could it be that the Primal Chaos Palace wants to snatch people from us? As long as the Ascenders aren't idiots, who would go to the Primal Chaos Palace? I heard that the Primal Chaos Palace doesn't even have a palace anymore. All that's left is a grass hut. In the forest, the various forces were talking and laughing without restraint. Hearing the discussions around him, the young man from the Primal Chaos Palace clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He was so furious that he couldn't suppress it anymore. Senior brother, the young man gnashed his teeth with an indignant expression. Su Rue sighed in his heart, Meng Shi, don't be angry with them. We're just trying our luck. In fact, he knew that even if there were Ascenders, they wouldn't be chosen. They only came here with a trace of hope. Their ancestors came from the Primal Chaos sacred ground. Although their cultivation was low back then, they had deep feelings for the Primal Chaos sacred ground and had been guarding it until now. But after the Primal Chaos sacred ground was destroyed, more than half of the experts in the sacred ground were killed. Those that survived had scattered and no one knew where they went. The treasures and inheritances in the sacred ground had long been divided. Su Rue and the others had low cultivation. Coupled with the fact that they didn't have any cultivation resources, they couldn't support a force. As time passed, the sea turned into mulberry fields. After all, it had been too long. For more than 6 billion years, countless forces in the southeastern region of the Great Thousand World had risen and fallen. The Primal Chaos sacred ground had also declined. In addition, after the huge upheaval in the Great Thousand World, no one was willing to have anything to do with the Primal Chaos sacred ground. Thus, its decline was inevitable. Now that their ancestors had passed away, the so-called Primal Chaos sacred ground was only left with a few thousand people. They didn't have a fixed residence and were bitterly holding on. The only thing that made them hold on until now was probably the obsession of their ancestors and a trace of yearning for the Primal Chaos sacred ground. Right at this moment, the flying immortal altar suddenly released balls of light. There was an ascender. In the forest, figures appeared one after another and gathered around the flying immortal altar. They stared at the center of the altar without blinking. Not long after, a figure appeared. This ascender was dressed in a wide green robe. His hair and beard were white, and his face was old. His body emitted a gloomy aura, and it was obvious that he didn't have much lifespan left. When the surrounding experts saw this green-robed elder, they were stunned for a moment before shaking their heads. He's actually a supremacy. It's a pity that his lifespan is almost up. He only has tens of thousands of years left. Even if he has enough origin stones, he won't be able to make continuous breakthroughs and step into the Tao comprehending state. He's so old, yet he still wants to ascend to the Great Thousand World. He should just retire down there. What's he doing up here? Everyone pursed their lips and dispersed, no longer paying attention to this green-robed elder. No one was willing to waste time and cultivation resources on this old man who was past his prime. To the experts' knowledge, Ascenders were all imperial emperors. They had never seen a supremacy who had ascended, let alone been to the middle world. They also didn't know that in the middle world, the combat power and lifespan of a supremacy would be limited. Now, although the green-robed elder didn't seem to have much time left, as long as he manifested his Tao seal in the Great Thousand World, his lifespan would skyrocket. End of chapter. Chapter 3244. Su Zimo stood on the flying immortal altar, not in a hurry to manifest a Tao seal. Instead, he spread out his divine sense and scanned his surroundings. Towering ancient trees grew in the surrounding forest, and many figures were hidden in the shadows of these ancient trees. So many people? Su Zimo only took a quick glance and saw thousands of figures. Moreover, these figures were dressed in different clothes, and they obviously came from different forces. This is the Great Thousand World? Su Zimo took a deep breath. The surrounding cultivation environment was indeed different from the middle world. In this world, he could not only feel the spirit qi of the lesser world, but also a large amount of yuan qi of the universe. Of course, among the large amount of spirit qi and yuan qi, there were also wisps of thin Genesis qi. It was indeed different from the middle world. Su Zimo had just ascended to the Great Thousand World and did not rashly absorb the Genesis qi between heaven and earth. Given his current body, which had fused with Qinglian and Red Lotus, if he really cultivated with all his strength, it would most likely cause a big commotion. Su Zimo had experienced countless dangers in the middle world. Just because of Qinglian's true body, he had been schemed against and narrowly escaped death. After coming to the Great Thousand World, he had become more cautious and even deliberately hid his strength. Back then, the black-robed man in the Netherblood Sea wanted to reforge the Qinglian and Red Lotus swords. Su Zimo did not hesitate for too long and sent the two swords over. There was another important reason. The two swords, after being reforged, covered the original characteristics of the sword, and others could not infer his origin from these two swords. In the Great Thousand World, everything was unknown. Moreover, in the War of the Heavens, he had become enemies with the masters of the heavenly court, including the Brahma Ghost Mother. According to the black-robed man, these people should be saints. Su Zimo did not want to expose his whereabouts and be targeted by these people after just ascending. Therefore, in the eyes of the various forces in the forest, the green-robed elder on the altar was at a loss. His hair was white, and his face was yellow. After such a torment, he was like a lamp that had run out of oil. He would not live for long. In the Great Thousand World, cultivation resources were also extremely scarce. The various forces did not want to waste cultivation resources on a person who was about to die. This old man is still a human. I wonder how he managed to ascend to our side. Who cares? He won't live for long anyway. In his current state, he might not even be able to walk out of this forest alive. Su Zimo heard the sounds of discussion coming from the surrounding forest. Senior brother Su, this old man is really pitiful. Why don't we let him come with us? The female cultivator from the Primal Chaos Palace said softly. Meng Shi frowned slightly, feeling conflicted in his heart. He said, Senior Sister Qin, this old man is so old. Even if he comes to our Primal Chaos Palace, he won't live for long. Su Rui fell silent for a while before he said, It's not that I don't want to take him in, but our Primal Chaos Palace can only be considered a third-grade force. We wander around the southeastern territory and do not have a fixed location. This old man might not be willing to follow us. Meng Shi added, Furthermore, we came here from afar and passed through dozens of prefectures along the way. If we bring this old man back, I'm afraid that he will be a burden to us. The female cultivator with the surname Chen looked at the green-robed elder and said softly, But if we ignore him, this old man knows nothing about the Great Thousand World. I'm afraid that he won't even be able to walk out of this forest. Meng Shi wanted to say more, but Su Rui shook his head and sighed. Sigh. Let's ask that old man for his opinion and let him choose. The female cultivator with the surname Chen smiled and walked toward the green-robed elder. She cupped her hands and said, I'm Qin Qianhe of the Primal Chaos Palace. How should I address you? Su Zimo. Su Zimo replied. During the War of the Heavens, he used the name of Araki Takashi to fight against the masters of the heavenly courts. He suppressed several people and destroyed the heavenly courts. Araki Takashi's name was too famous. Out of caution, Su Zimo did not mention his Taoist name. If you don't have anywhere to go, you can come to the Primal Chaos Palace to cultivate. Chen Qian has said, it's just that the Primal Chaos Palace is not considered a big force in the southeastern territory, and there aren't many people. I wonder if you, before Su Zimo could reply, a burst of mocking laughter came from the forest. The Primal Chaos Palace has really declined. No one wants to join them. They won't even let off a dying person. What nonsense are you spouting? They might be relying on this dying man to restore the glory of the Primal Chaos Holy Land. How, when that time comes, we can be considered witnesses. A burst of mocking laughter was heard. Chen Qianhe's face turned red, and she looked embarrassed. She lowered her head and did not say anything. Primal Chaos Palace? Primal Chaos Sacred Land? Initially, Su Zimo was not interested in the factions of the Great Kiliakosm. However, when he heard that, he made a decision. Thank you for your generosity, fellow Taoist. I'm willing to go to the Primal Chaos Palace. Su Zimo cupped his fists and answered. Come with me. Chen Qianhe nodded and turned to leave, as if she wanted to leave this place quickly so that she would not be mocked by the people around her. She brought Su Zimo to meet the other two people from the Primal Chaos Palace, Su Rui and Meng Shi. Su Rui was at the third transformation of the Tao Manifestation Realm. Meng Shi and Su Zimo were at the same realm, the first transformation of the Tao Manifestation Realm. Chen Qianhe was at the second transformation of the Tao Manifestation Realm. When Su Rui saw Su Zimo coming over, he nodded and smiled. Meng Shi's attitude was neither warm nor cold. He merely glanced at him without greeting him. Chen Qianhe said, Fellow Taoist Su, you've just ascended. I'm sure you have many questions about the Great Kiliakosm. Let's talk as we walk. As she spoke, she took out a spirit boat from her storage bag and gestured for Su Zimo to board. Su Zimo glanced at it. Chen Qianhe's spirit boat was a little damaged. It was not as good as the one he had obtained from the storage bags of the heavenly court lords during the War of the Heavens. Su Zimo did not say anything. After Su Rui and Meng Shi boarded the spirit boat, he also followed. Meng Shi steered the spirit boat and made several turns, as if deliberately avoiding something, and headed out of the forest. Chen Qianhe explained, Fellow Taoist Su, the Great Kiliakosm is very different from the middle world. Although you have cultivated to the sovereign stage in the Great Kiliakosm, you can't break the void and use teleportation techniques. Su Zimo nodded inwardly. This was something he had long expected. When he ascended from the small Kiliakosm to the middle world, there was a similar situation. The higher the level of the world, the greater the energy, the more stable the space. For example, in the Great Kiliakosm, there was not only spiritual qi, yuan qi, and genesis qi. The space formed was very difficult to shake. Waving her hand, Chen Qianhe retrieved a rock from the ground beneath her and handed it to Su Zimo. It's not just the stability of space. Even the most ordinary rock in the greater world is far tougher than a middle world after being exposed to the environment of the greater world for a long time. Even with my cultivation, I can't crush it. Su Zimo showed a trace of curiosity. He took the stone and examined it in his palm. It was indeed the most ordinary stone. Su Zimo took out an emperor weapon from the middle world from his storage bag and slammed it on the stone. Sparks flew, but the stone was intact. This old man still doesn't believe me. Meng Shi turned around and chuckled. Su Rui looked ahead and observed the surroundings. Chen Qianhe did not think much of this scene. Be careful. Su Rui seemed to have noticed something and hurriedly warned. Chen Qianhe also stood up and looked over. Su Zimo glanced at the stone in his palm. He flipped his palm and suddenly exerted force. The stone silently turned into a pile of gravel and sand and slowly fell through the gaps between his fingers. End of chapter. Chapter 3245. Su Rui and the other two stared at the spirit-devouring flower below the spirit vessel with grim expressions and did not notice Su Zimo's subtle action. Spirit-devouring flowers existed in Tianhuang mainland as well. However, compared to this one, they were way too insignificant. The spirit-devouring flower was dozens of feet tall and its edges were jagged, resembling two rows of sharp fangs. It opened its mouth wide and wanted to devour the spirit vessel. As Chen Qianhe had said, everything in the Greater Thousand World, including life, was unusually strong. Su Rui took a step forward and controlled the spirit vessel to avoid the attack range of the spirit-devouring flower by a hair's breadth. Increasing its speed, it turned into a streak of light and fled the place. The three of them heaved a sigh of relief only after they were out of the attack range of the spirit-devouring flower. Chen Qianhe sat back down and caught sight of the sand beside Su Zimo's feet. However, she did not think much of it. After all, they had just escaped danger and there was still lingering fear. Chen Qianhe looked at Su Zimo. In the Greater Thousand World, especially the Southeast Territory, Most plants possess sentience and some of them are even extremely aggressive. Su Zimo nodded with a calm expression. The spirit-devouring flower was not much of a threat to him. He was Qinglian, and the moment he released his bloodline, there was a natural bloodline suppression against living beings of the plant race. That bloodline suppression came from the depths of his soul. It was like a captive dog. Even if it had never seen a ferocious beast like a tiger, it would still tremble in fear the first time it saw one. Su Zimo asked, "What's the relationship between the Chaos Palace and the Chaos Sacred Ground, fellow Taoist?" At the mention of that, Chen Qianhe sighed gently. "It's just some legends passed down from our ancestors. Initially, there was a Chaos Sacred Ground in the Southeast Territory. However, it was destroyed due to a huge upheaval and our ancestors wandered about and gradually declined. Now, the only thing left is the name of the Chaos Palace." Su Zimo nodded silently. The huge upheaval that Chen Qianhe mentioned should have something to do with the destruction in his inherited memories. The black-robed man had said something similar as well. "What Tao do you cultivate, fellow Taoist?" Chen Qianhe asked. "The Tao of Chaos," Su Zimo replied. Chen Qianhe was stunned for a moment. Su Rui looked at him in astonishment. Meng Shirshir laughed weirdly and wanted to say something. However, he was stopped by Su's gaze and pouted. Su Zimo asked, "What's the problem?" "Fellow Taoist, you cultivate the Tao of primal chaos. You do have some fate with our primal chaos palace." Chen Qianhe smiled bitterly, hesitating to speak. "You ascended too, fellow Taoist." Chen Qianhe paused for a moment, then explained, "If you were to ascend as a world-level cultivator, you would be able to choose a relatively easy grand Tao to train in. World-level cultivators were equivalent to emperors." Chen Qianhe said, "The 3,000 great Taos have different strengths and weaknesses. The difficulty of cultivation is also different. Taoist Tao to Tao, its T have the strength of it, of Tao of it of. Realm was, not. Of the of it be. Even if he chose another Tao, it was too late." Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. For others, Tao of Chaos might be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But for him, it was the easiest Tao to cultivate. He had fused with Qinglian of Creation and the red karmic fire lotus. He also possessed the legacy memories of Chaos Qinglian. Although they were incomplete and intermittent, he still had a natural advantage when it came to cultivating the Tao of Chaos. Not long after, the four of them passed through the forest and the sky gradually darkened. Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, "Do greater kiliocosms have a cycle of day and night?" Chen Qianhe nodded. "Every 12 hours, there will be a cycle of day and night." The cycle of day and night was extremely similar to Tianhuang mainland. However, Su Zimo did not see the sun, moon, or stars when he looked up at the sky. If there's no sun and moon, why is there a cycle of day and night? Su Zimo asked again. Chen Qianhe shook her head. "I don't know either. It's just that the greater kiliocosm has been like this ever since I descended." Su Zimo asked more about the greater kiliocosm and Chen Qianhe answered him one by one patiently. At the side, Meng Shi was a little impatient and could not help but mutter, "What's the point of telling him so much? He doesn't have many years left to live." "Junior brother Meng," Chen Qianhe hollered softly before turning to Su Zimo with an apologetic expression. "Junior brother Meng is straightforward. Fellow Taoist, please don't take it to heart. Your lifespan." Chen Qianhe wanted to say something comforting but did not know what to say when she looked at Su Zimo's aged face. "Fellow Taoist, here's an origin stone. Take it and cultivate first." After a moment, as though she had made a decision, Chen Qianhe took out an origin stone from her storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo. "Senior sister." "Qianhe," Meng Shi exclaimed when he saw that. Even Su Rui, who always had a calm demeanor, could not help but frown. Meng Shi was a little anxious and hurriedly said, "Senior sister, this origin stone is so precious. You only have a few left and you're still giving it to him." Su Rui also said in a deep voice, "Qianhe, this fellow Taoist's lifespan is almost up. No matter how many origin stones he has, he won't be able to make a breakthrough. You should keep the origin stone for yourself. It's fine. It's just an origin stone. Qin Qianhe pretended to be relaxed and smiled. She did not know why, but she could not help but have a good impression of the white-haired Su Zimo. It was as though she had seen a relative. Perhaps he has father's shadow in him. Qin Qianhe thought so. Seeing that the three of them did not seem to be faking it, Su Zimo was surprised. The primal chaos sacred land had fallen into such a miserable state after its decline? He still had more than 100 origin stones in his storage bag. They were all seized from the heavenly court during the War of the Heavens back then. He only had a few left after cultivating for many years. From the looks of it, Su Rui and the other two probably did not have more than 100 origin stones. Origin stones in the Great Thousand World are so rare? Asked Su Zimo. Su Rui explained, "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. It's just that our primal chaos palace is not strong enough to occupy the origin stones. Therefore, we don't have many origin stones with us. If you regret joining the primal chaos palace, it's not too late to leave now." Meng Shi snorted. Su Zimo was not annoyed when he heard that and dismissed it with a smile. It was not easy for the three of them to still be able to hold on when the primal chaos sacred land had fallen into such a state. "You're right. I do have fate with the primal chaos palace." Smiling faintly, Su Zimo said meaningfully. Su Zimo did not reject the origin stones that Qin Qianhe handed over and placed them in his storage bag. Everyone was still in a hurry. According to Qin Qianhe, the journey would not be safe, so Su Zimo did not dare to cultivate rashly. At the very least, he had to settle down before he could cultivate in seclusion and release all the energy that he had accumulated over the years. He had been in the netherworld for 60,000 years and had actually broken through to the first transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. However, he was restricted by the laws of heaven and earth and could not manifest it. Moreover, he had integrated with a grade 12 red karmic fire lotus before he ascended. End of chapter. Chapter 3246. Su Rui and the other two took turns to steer the spirit boat out of the forest, heading in the same direction. Day and night alternated, and in the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Speaking of which, Su Rui and the other two had passed through more than 10 prefectures on their way here. When the three of them arrived at the Ascension altar, they were all injured. But on their way back, it was a daunting experience without any mishaps. According to Qin Qianhe, there were a total of 108 prefectures in the southeast of the Great Thousand World, all of which were originally occupied by the plant race. After the upheaval 6 billion years ago, the primal chaos sacred ground was destroyed, and the southeast was in a mess. Experts from other races gradually rose, and the plant race declined day by day. Today, the 108 prefectures were considered first-rate forces in the Great Thousand World, and most of them were ruled by powerful beings from other races. As for the human race, their status was extremely low among the thousands of races in the Great Thousand World. The human race was born weak, and their bloodline was ordinary. They were at the bottom of the thousands of races, and they were even inferior to the plant race. This situation was similar in the Lesser Thousand World and Middle Thousand World. However, the human race would often give birth to some peerless experts that could suppress the thousands of races. Qin Qianhe also mentioned that there were 33 heavens in the northwest of the Great Thousand World, and they were ruled by a powerful race called the Heavenly Human Race. Legend had it that the Heavenly Human Race was extremely powerful. When they were born, they were close to the Great Tao, and their cultivation speed was extremely fast. This was what Qin Qianhe heard from her ancestors, and she didn't know the details. The three of them had never left the southeast of the Great Thousand World, and they had never seen the real heavenly human race. On this day, the four of them finally entered the territory of the Canopy State. Su Zimo sat on the spirit boat, and when he looked down, he couldn't help but laugh. As far as the eye could see, there was a large cluster of colorful mushrooms that covered the mountains and plains. There were large mushrooms that soared into the sky like a huge canopy, covering the sky. There were colorful butterflies flying, giant pythons coiling, and many poisonous spiders weaving webs in the corners. There were many living beings living on it, and it was like a small world. Su Zimo and the others passed by below. Compared to it, they were as small as ants. Some of the mushrooms were only the size of a finger, and their shapes were mostly the same. Looking down from above and surveying the surroundings, they really did seem like numerous canopies that stood on this boundless land. Of course, there were other types of vegetation in the Kanagai state, but the mushrooms were the majority. Chun Qian has said, these mushroom groups in the Kanagai state are not very aggressive. Generally, they will not take the initiative to attack other races. However, you have to be careful. Some mushrooms are highly toxic and should not be touched. According to our ancestors, when the sacred land of chaos was still around and the floral clan was at its peak, a Dao master expert came to the Canopy Guy state and ate a poisonous mushroom by mistake. Su Zimo nodded secretly. It was a poisonous mushroom, but it could poison an expert like Dao master. It was indeed powerful. Fellow Taoist Su, after reaching the primal chaos palace, you must remember not to walk around casually and stay too far away. Chen Qianhe warned again, there are many types of poisonous mushrooms in Canopy Guy state. Some of them can be recognized at a glance, but some are good at disguising themselves. They look harmless but are actually extremely poisonous. If you accidentally touch it, your life will be in danger. Su Zimo nodded and replied casually. When Su Rue saw that Su Zimo did not seem to think much of it, he could not help but frown and remind him, fellow Taoist Su, even if we stay here for a long time, we can't recognize all the types of poisonous mushrooms, let alone you who just ascended to the greater world. Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. Although he could not recognize the types of poisonous mushrooms, he was Qinglian and had the bloodline of the Qinglian. There were no poisonous mushrooms that could poison him. Furthermore, he could tell whether a mushroom was poisonous with a single glance. After entering the Kanagai state, the spirit vessel was handed over to Su Ru. With a grim expression, he shuttled through the many mushrooms carefully, trying his best to avoid the colorful ones as he advanced slowly. They only arrived at the Primal Chaos Palace a few days later. The so-called Primal Chaos Palace did not have an actual palace. It was just hundreds of simple straw huts scattered in the mountains, looking extremely shabby. Senior brother Su and the others are back. When they saw Su Rue and the other two, a few people shouted from the crowd below. Some cultivators stood up and went up to welcome them. Su Zimo's gaze swept across the crowd. There were only about 3,000 people below, and almost all of them had gained sentience from plants and had taken human form. Their cultivation levels were different. Some of them were at the Mystic Immortal or Earth Immortal realm, while some had reached the Grotto Heavenly King realm or even the World realm. Apart from Su Rue and the other two, there was only one other person who had reached the Tao Manifestation realm. He was an honest-looking middle-aged man whose true form was an ancient locust tree. He was at the second transformation of the Tao Manifestation realm. Senior brother Pan, there are fewer people? Meng Shi asked with a frown as soon as Su Rue and the others landed. The honest-looking senior brother Pan rubbed his palms and said, "We did not occupy the origin mine, so we lack cultivation resources. Some people could not hold on and left to find another way." Senior brother Pan looked at Su Zimo, who was slowly walking down from the spirit vessel, and asked. "He is an ascender that we received. His name is Su Zimo." Chen Qian has said, "Fellow Taoist Su, this is senior brother Pan Mu." Su Zimo cupped his fists towards Pan Mu and greeted him. Pan Mu grinned, then looked at Meng Shi with a puzzled expression. He did not understand why the three of them had received such an old man who was at the end of his life. Meng Shi snorted in annoyance. They had gone through so much danger and made this trip, but not only did they not gain anything, they even brought back a burden. Pan Mu seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "Recently, we have been targeted by the Black Rat sect. Those scoundrels might come at any moment. Our Chaos Palace did not occupy any origin mines. Why are they looking for trouble?" Meng Shi felt indignant. "Why don't we leave? Let's not get into any conflict with the Black Rat sect." Qin Qianhe looked around, her eyes dimming. She said softly, These people from the Chaos Palace probably won't be able to withstand any more fighting. But if we keep running like this, when will it end? Pan Mu sighed. Su Rui gripped his fists and a resolute look flashed through his eyes as he said in a deep voice, Black Rat Sect is merely a third-grade faction with more supremacies. If they dare to come at us, I'll deal with them. In the Greater Thousand World, factions with Tao Venerables could be considered as first-grade factions. Only those with Heavenly Venerables could be considered as second-grade factions. For example, the Chaos Palace where the strongest cultivators were supremacies was a third-grade faction. Senior Brother Su, but your injuries. Chen Qianhe frowned slightly. It's fine. Su Rui took a deep breath of air and looked at everyone around him, declaring loudly, as long as we endure through this period of time, we'll have a chance to see the light. Once I take another step forward and enter the Tao Enlightenment realm, our Chaos Palace will have the strength to stand firm here and our situation will definitely get better. There were only a few responses. In fact, many followers no longer harbored much hope for the Chaos Palace. Without sufficient cultivation resources, it would not be easy for them to enter the Tao Enlightenment realm. The so-called sacred ground might truly be nothing more than a legend. End of chapter. Chapter 3247. Everyone dispersed, but each of them had their own thoughts. No one knew just where the future path of the Primal Chaos Palace lay. Even Su Rui himself was worried about it. Perhaps, the legacy of the Chaos Sacred Grounds would vanish in their generation. Meng Shi remained silent. Pan Mu looked at Su Rui and the other two with a hint of guilt in his eyes. He wanted to say something but stopped. Chen Qianhe forced a smile and said, We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's always a way out. As long as we work together, we'll be able to get through this. After a moment, Chen Qianhe thought of Su Zimo beside him and walked closer, whispering, Fellow Taoist Su, I'm sure you can see that the future of the Chaos Palace is uncertain. If you want to leave, we won't stop you. However, it's dangerous outside. Fellow Taoist, you have to be extremely careful since you're alone. He won't live for long anyway. Meng Shi pursed his lips and thought to himself. However, when he thought of the danger that the Chaos Palace was about to face, he was no longer in the mood to mock Su Zimo. Let's do it here. Su Zimo smiled and said, I'll find a secluded place to cultivate. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to worry. Come with me. Chen Qianhe nodded and brought Su Zimo to a cave in the back mountain. Although it's simple here, it can block your vision. Fellow Taoist, if you hear a battle erupting in front of the mountain, you can escape on your own. Then, Chen Qianhe hesitated for a moment and seemed to have made a decision. She took out 5 origin stones from her storage bag and stuffed them into Su Zimo's arms. These are all for you. I'm afraid I won't be able to use them in the future. With that, Chen Qianhe turned and left. Are you guys going to fight to the death with Black Rat Sect? Su Zimo's voice sounded behind her. Chen Qianhe's back was facing Su Zimo as she sighed deeply. All these years, we've been running for our lives like treading on thin ice. I've had enough of it. All these years, the few of them had been bitterly holding on and were already exhausted. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to feel guilty. You've just ascended and are not considered a member of the Chaos Palace. No one will blame you if you leave now. Chen Qianhe did not stop and soon disappeared around the corner of the mountain. Su Zimo looked around. This place was separated from the Primal Chaos Palace by a mountain. It was indeed a quiet place. He entered the cave and sat down cross-legged. After ascending, it was only now that he had the time to cultivate. Over the past month, although Su Zimo did not cultivate, he secretly sensed the many changes in his Tao techniques after coming to the great wide world. The so-called Tao manifestation realm was to condense a Tao seal in one's own world. With the help of this seal, his flesh, blood, and primordial spirit would undergo a metamorphosis, and he would be reborn. At the Tao manifestation realm, he had truly come into contact with the power of the Tao. The higher one's cultivation base was, the greater the gap between each small realm. If he wanted to fight someone of a higher level, it would be even more difficult. Back in the dimensional realm, Su Zimo, who had just entered the Arch realm, had an essence soul that was comparable to a great emperor's. In other words, he was a supremacy at the first transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. Later on, when he became a great emperor in the middle thousand realms, due to the limitations of the heavenly Tao, the power of his primordial spirit was unable to break through this upper limit. After coming to the great wide world, his essence soul realm was gradually released. Now, he was considered to be at the first transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. However, his essence soul realm had already reached the third transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. In the great wide world, it was unimaginable for an essence soul realm to surpass someone of the same level by two small realms. One had to know that Su Zimo had only reached that level after fusing with the red karmic fire lotus. Su Zimo propped up a world and manifested a Tao seal. His body trembled as massive life force surged into his body. His lifespan increased instantly. His white hair turned black. His originally aged face turned young once more. His face was rosy and he had delicate features. His white beard fell off as well. The lifespan of an ordinary supremacy was 100 million years. However, after Su Zimo came to the great wide world and manifested a Tao seal, his lifespan increased to 500 million years. Of course, that was not the only change in his body. After presiding over the netherworld for 60,000 years, he had accumulated an endless amount of power in his body. At that moment, without the suppression of the heaven and earth laws and Su Zimo, all of it was released. Fusing with the grade 12 red karmic fire lotus also transformed Qinglian's true body at the same time. A massive amount of power exploded within Su Zimo's body like a volcano erupting. Su Zimo was bathed in the karmic fire. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a ball of fire and his cultivation soared at an unimaginable speed. Before long, he broke through to the second transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. Flesh transformation. A series of crackling sounds came from Su Zimo's body. His bloodline surged and there was the faint sound of a tsunami. Qinglian's true body was reborn once more. His essence soul realm increased as well and reached the Tao comprehension realm, the level of a heavenly venerable. His aura was rising continuously as well. In just a single night, Su Zimo had already cultivated to the peak of the flesh transformation realm. The first light of dawn shone on Su Zimo's delicate face. His body trembled slightly once more. A sound came from within his body. He continued to break through. The third transformation of the Tao manifestation realm, essence spirit transformation. After cultivating to this stage, Su Zimo's essence spirit transformed once more. His cultivation realm also soared as he advanced another level to the level of a great heavenly venerate. Over the past few days, according to Qinshenhe, there were 3 minor realms in the Tao comprehension realm: small success, large success, and perfection. The 3 minor realms corresponded to different titles: heavenly venerate, great heavenly venerate, and supreme heavenly venerate. The meaning of supremacy was the most extreme. Although Su Zimo had stayed in the middle world for 60,000 years, his cultivation did not fall because of it. After ascending to the great wide world without the restrictions of the heaven and earth laws, he broke through 2 minor realms in less than a day. His cultivation continued to rise. As time passed, he gradually cultivated to the peak of the third transformation of the Tao manifestation realm before stopping. In order to enter the Tao comprehension realm and become a heavenly venerate, one did not need resources like origin stones. More importantly, one needed to comprehend the great Tao and touch the essence of the Tao. Some people might not be able to break through this bottleneck their entire lives and be unable to see the essence of the Tao. Some people might be able to comprehend the Tao and become a heavenly venerate through a series of coincidences. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to sense something and opened his eyes. They came so quickly? He sensed an army of tens of thousands of cultivators heading over to surround them. Most of them were from the black rat race. Although they had transformed into human form, they looked shifty and were the easiest to recognize. Although Su Zimo was only at the third transformation of the Tao manifestation realm, his essence spirit had reached the large success of the Tao comprehension realm and was comparable to a great heavenly venerate. Therefore, He could see the newcomers clearly with a sweep of his divine perception. At that moment, no one in the Chaos Palace had noticed anything. Su Rui, Meng Shi, and Qin Qianhe were recuperating in seclusion. Pan Mu, who looked simple and honest, was pacing back and forth at the door. He was uneasy and his behavior was a little strange. From time to time, he would look into the distance as if he was anxious. Chapter 3248. In the Primal Chaos Palace. Su Rui, who was recuperating, suddenly opened his eyes. His face changed as he stood up and barked, "Junior Sister Chen, Junior Brother Meng, and Junior Brother Pan, someone's here." Qin Qianhe and Meng Shi were startled as they walked out of the straw hut. Pan Mu was already waiting outside the straw hut. When he saw Su Rui and the other two, he immediately went up and whispered, "It should be the Black Rat Gate." "How many people are here?" Meng Shi immediately asked. Su Rui sensed and replied with a grave expression, "I'm afraid that there are tens of thousands of them." Hearing this number, Qin Qianhe and Meng Shi's hearts sank. With such a huge commotion, it was clear that they didn't come with good intentions. The Primal Chaos Palace wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. "Fellow disciples, there's an enemy attack. Be alert!" Su Rui roared. The 3,000 people in the Primal Chaos Palace were jolted awake. They immediately went out and gathered around Su Rui's group of 4 as they looked into the distance. At this moment, everyone could feel the tremors coming from the ground. Everyone felt a heavy pressure in their hearts. Senior Brother Su, looking at the current situation, "In my opinion," Pan Mu knitted his brows with hesitation. "What's wrong?" Su Rui casually asked as he focused his attention on the silhouettes that were emerging from the mountain not too far away. "Why don't we surrender?" Pan Mu sighed. Pan Mu didn't lower his voice, so everyone could hear it clearly. The noisy crowd instantly quietened down. Su Rui, Meng Shi, and Qin Qianhe turned their heads and looked at Pan Mu in disbelief. "Surrender!" Su Rui suppressed the rage in his heart and asked once more with his fists clenched. "What did you say?" Meng Shi's temper was even more explosive as he roared. Pan Mu took 2 steps back and shook his head. "Senior Brother Su, you should know that even if we persist, what can we do? We won't be able to escape the fate of defeat. How many people from the Primal Chaos Palace can survive? Since that's the case, why are you so stubborn? Surrender to the Black Rat Gate and become slaves?" Meng Shi cursed. Su Rui was so furious that he laughed. "Even if we surrender, do you think the people from the Primal Chaos Palace can survive? Don't tell me you don't know the fate of our Plantwood clan under the command of those powers. For the rest of our lives, we will be enslaved and driven. Without any dignity, we will be reduced to tools or even food. Our lives are like grass in their eyes. Even if we obey them, we won't be able to escape death." "Ha!" A sharp laughter rang out. "If you don't surrender, you'll die today." Before his laughter faded, 7 figures had already descended above the Chaos Palace. All of them were supremacies. 2 of them were 3rd Transformation Tao Manifestation Supremacies, 3 were 2nd Transformation Supremacies, and 2 were 1st Transformation Supremacies. Behind the 7 venerables, there were still tens of thousands of soldiers rushing over, raising billowing clouds of dust. Sweeping his gaze around, Su Rui looked at Pan Mu and said, "Junior Brother Pan, there are only 7 sovereigns on the other side. With the 4 of us working together, we might be able to put up a fight." Pan Mu shook his head continuously and gradually retreated, saying, "We can't win." A wise man submits to circumstances. The sect master of the Black Rat sect smiled and said, "This fellow Taoist Pan has already pledged his allegiance to us. He is now a member of our Black Rat sect." Meng Shi glared at him. When Qin Qianhe heard that, she had a conflicted expression in disbelief. Pan Mu avoided the gazes of Su Rui and the other 2 and said softly, "I've been waiting here for you guys to return. I want to fight for this opportunity for you and everyone else as well." Su Rui, our sect master, has already cultivated to the peak of the 3rd transformation of Tao manifestation and is invincible in the Huagai continent. He's known as a supreme supremacy. Even if you're in your peak condition, You won't be a match for our sect master even if there are 10 of you. Foo-foo. Mengshi sneered. There are 108 states in the Southeastern Territory. How dare you call yourself a supreme supremacy just because you're invincible in the Huagai continent? How shameless! Mengshi's taunt was merciless and he had already disregarded his own life. What a sharp tongue. If you land in the hands of my husband, you'll definitely suffer a fate worse than death. A woman with heavy makeup stood beside the sect master of Black Rat Sect and hollered. Even from afar, one could smell the scent of makeup on her. All right. The sect master of Black Rat Sect had a cold gaze. Today, I'll let you witness the capabilities of a supreme supremacy. Before he finished his sentence, the sect master of Black Rat Sect had already arrived before Mengshi. Extending his palm, his sharp fingernails flickered with a dark light as he clawed towards Mengshi's head. The sect master of Black Rat Sect was extremely fast, and Mengshi could not react in time with the difference of 2 minor realms. Watch out! Su Rui's voice sounded beside his ears. Suddenly, Mengshi felt himself being sent flying by a tremendous force. From the corner of his eye, he saw Su Rui standing where he was and punching in reverse to receive the claw of the sect master of Black Rat Sect. Shing! A flash of blood appeared. Su Rui staggered back a few steps and the back of his hand was bleeding from the sect master of Black Rat Sect's claw. Su Rui's expression changed as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Rui was injured in a single move. His injuries were not healed to begin with and now, they were even worse. Can't even withstand a single blow. The sect master of Black Rat Sect sneered and waved his hand casually with disdain in his eyes. Senior brother Su. Chen Qianhe and Mengshi immediately came to Su Rui's side and shielded him. I'm fine. Su Rui forced a smile. Su Ruiqiang laughed, but before he could finish his words, he suddenly felt dizzy. His body swayed and he almost fell to the ground. Do you think that it's that easy to receive my claw? The sect master of Black Rat Sect asked with a smile. When Chen Qianhe saw the green wound on the back of Su Rui's hand, she couldn't help but exclaim, it's poisonous. Su Rui also realized this and despair filled his heart. However, he did not show it on his face and only looked coldly at the sect master of Black Rat Sect. He knew that the difference between the two of them was too great. Even if he was in his peak condition, it would be difficult for him to fight against the sect master of Black Rat Sect. Su Rui looked around. His gaze fell on the people of the Primal Chaos Palace and he saw their faces filled with confusion, fear, and fear. When he thought about the fate of Chen Qianhe, Mengshi, and the remaining 3,000 people of the Primal Chaos Palace after his death, he couldn't help but feel sorrow. The Primal Chaos sacred ground had fallen to such a state. From today onwards, the Primal Chaos sacred ground would forever be history, an illusory legend. Are you guys still not going to surrender? The sect master of Black Rat Sect was overbearing. Just kill me, Chen Qianhe said sorrowfully. Karma is the cycle of the heavenly Tao. If the heavens have eyes and allow the plant race to rise again, you foreign races whose hands are stained with blood will definitely be punished. The sect master of Black Rat Sect laughed shrilly. A few people who are about to die are still thinking about the prosperity of the plant race? The Southeastern Territory is no longer ruled by the plant race. Mengshi gritted his teeth. No matter what, it's not your turn to rule the Southeastern Territory. The sect master of Black Rat Sect sneered and said proudly, let's not talk about anything big. At the very least, I'm the ruler of this place right now. I have the final say. That might not be the case. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the side. It was neither loud nor soft and the tone was calm. End of chapter. Chapter 3249. Everyone turned towards the source of the voice and saw a man standing not far away. He had black hair and green robes. His features were refined and he exuded a scholarly aura. The sect master of Black Rat Sect scanned with his spirit consciousness. Third transformation of Tao manifestation. Since when was there such a person in Chaos Palace? The sect master of Black Rat's sect looked at Pan Mu beside him. At this moment, Pan Mu's face was blank as well. He did not know when this person arrived and merely felt that he looked familiar, but he could not recall who he was. Chen Qianhe turned back instinctively and was stunned when she saw who it was. This person. Chen Qianhe only felt that this person was familiar. Although he had no beard and black hair, his green robes and clear eyes, how was that possible? That person clearly did not have much lifespan left and was only at the first transformation of Tao manifestation half a day ago. You have a problem with that? The sect master of Black Rat's sect raised his brow and his eyes shone with a ferocious glint, as though he could kill anyone at any moment. Countless supremacies at the third transformation of Tao manipulation realm had died in his hands. He did not take this green-robed man seriously at all. Not really. As Su Zimo said, he walked to Su Rui and the other two and looked at the wound on the back of Su Rui's hand. Su Rui's injuries were not serious. However, the poison was extremely powerful and had already spread from his palm to his shoulder. Su Rui's bloodline could not suppress it at all. If it continued spreading and entered his heart and consciousness, he would die. At that moment, Su Rui's consciousness was already blurry. Su Zimo did not even look at the sect master of Black Rat's sect as he said indifferently, "I'm just telling you something. At this moment, I'm in charge here." Those words came from the sect master of Black Rat's sect. However, it was a different person now. Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo suddenly struck and a green beam of light burst forth from his fingertip, pointing at Su Rui's body and arm. "What are you doing?" Meng Shi was shocked. Before he could react, Su Zimo had already finished his technique. Hearing those words, Su Rui's body trembled. Meng Shi, who was originally supporting Su Rui, could clearly sense that Su Rui's vitality had increased, and the deathly aura on his face had also gradually dissipated. Even the poison that had spread to Su Rui's arm was swiftly retreating. The dark green venom slowly dripped from the wound on the back of his hand, as if it was being squeezed out by a powerful force. Although the poison on the Black Rat sect's fingernails was powerful, it was far inferior to the lotus finger released by Su Zimo using the Qinglian true body. Not only that, but the vitality that flowed into Su Rui's body also healed his internal injuries. Su Rui's condition was getting better and better, to the point that he could even stand on his own without Meng Shi's support. This change happened so fast that it only happened after Su Zimo said a few words. Let alone Chen Qianhe and Meng Shi, even the Black Rat sect master frowned as a trace of fear rose in his heart. He temporarily suppressed his urge to make a move. This person had an extraordinary bearing, and he looked so calm and unfathomable. Could it be that he had a powerful background? There were many forces in the Canopy continent, and their roots were intertwined. Who knew if this person had a backer? If they offended a second-rate force because of this, it wouldn't be worth it. Your fellow Taoist Su? Chen Qianhe had been staring at Su Zimo the entire time. After holding it in for a long time, she finally probed. Su Zimo nodded his head with a smile. Is it really you? Even after receiving Su Zimo's confirmation, Chen Qianhe still didn't dare to believe it. After all, he was an old man past his prime half a day ago. But now, he had turned into a scholar with 2 consecutive breakthroughs. This had completely shattered her understanding. Meng Shi also widened his eyes as he looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. His face was filled with shock, and he was speechless for a moment. I remember now. Right at this moment, Pan Mu suddenly spoke up. This person is the ascender that Su Rui brought back. When he first came back, he didn't have much lifespan left. But now, he has recovered. Ascender. When he heard those words, the sect master of Black Rat's sect heaved a sigh of relief. I was being overly cautious. The leader of the Black Rat sect shook his head. Even if he was an ascender, it was only natural that he didn't have any backing. Ascender? Fufu. The sect master of Black Rat sect chuckled and said, You've just ascended and don't know the dangers of the world. It's understandable that you want to meddle in other people's business. I'll give you a chance. Submit to me immediately. If you dare say no, I'll kill you. Chen Qianhe sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness hurriedly, Fellow Taoist Su, hurry and escape. Don't bother about us. It's fine. I was just about to find someone to test my strength against. Su Zimo smiled indifferently and stood in front of Su Rue and the other two. Why you have to be careful? He's known as a supreme supremacy. Meng Shi, who was initially sarcastic, reminded Su Zimo subconsciously as he was worried for him. Ha! Su Zimo roared in laughter. Is he worthy of being called a supreme supremacy before me? Everyone present did not know about Su Zimo's background and could not help but think that he was arrogant when they heard that. But a figure flashed before him. The sect master of Black Rat's sect had already attacked. His movement technique was still extremely fast, and his attack was extremely sudden this time round without any warning. While Su Zimo was speaking, the sect master of Black Rat's sect had already arrived before him. Su Zimo's body swayed slightly and his footsteps shifted slightly, dodging the attack of the sect master of Black Rat's sect by a hair's breadth. Both sides crossed. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals, releasing a forbidden skill towards the sect master of Black Rat's sect. Time seal. The sect master of Black Rat's sect froze for a moment. Chen Qianhe, Meng Shi, and the others were dumbfounded as well. The time seal had no effect on the sect master of Black Rat's sect and could not even reduce his lifespan at all. Ha! Suddenly, the surroundings burst into laughter. The woman in makeup laughed hysterically and pointed at Su Zimo. You're truly an ascender. You're so dumb that it's adorable. To think that you would release a forbidden skill against a supremacy. Su Zimo was expressionless as he released two more forbidden skills in succession. The two forbidden skills did not affect the sect master of Black Rat's sect much when they landed on him. Meng Shi coughed gently and felt awkward. Chen Qianhe could not bear to watch any longer and reminded, fellow Taoist Su, forbidden skills are only at the level of Tao manifestation. The damage they deal to supremacies at the third transformation of Tao manifestation is negligible. Su Zimo nodded and was enlightened. In the middle world, he faced great emperor experts like the Lord of Hell. Due to the restrictions of the heaven and earth laws, their cultivation realms were at most at the first transformation of Tao manifestation. That was the reason why he could barely fight against them after releasing 9 forbidden skills. However, after going through the second and third transformation of Tao manifestation and the transformation of one's essence spirit, it was difficult for the power of forbidden skills to hurt experts like the sect master of Black Rat's sect. In terms of Tao, the power of forbidden skills was half a level lower. Unless those forbidden skills were comprehended to the level of Tao as well. However, that was not realistic. Any one of the 3,000 great Taos was enough for a cultivator to comprehend for a lifetime. How would they have the energy and time to comprehend other great Taos? Chapter 3250. Some mocked and some were anxious as they watched the battle between Su Zimo and Black Rat's sect master. However, Su Zimo remained calm and composed the entire time. He was not joking with Chen Qianhe earlier on. He really wanted to find someone to test his strength against. Although he had once fought against the lords of the heavenly courts in the middle realm, he could not fully unleash the combat strength of a supremacy due to the restrictions of the heaven and earth laws. Su Zimo had just ascended and was not familiar with the combat methods of supremacies. That was why he just now was testing the waters. Black Rat's sect master attacked again but was dodged by Su Zimo again. Su Zimo dodged Black Rat's sect master's attack while comprehending the changes brought about by the Tao manifestation realm. The power of forbidden arts did not have much of an effect on Tao manifestation supremacies. That also meant that many of his previous methods, such as the mystic techniques of ancient and modern that increased his combat strength, would be useless. Su Zimo released ancient and modern right away. Although the river of time appeared behind him, it could not reduce his lifespan. His combat strength did not increase at all. Just as expected, the power of forbidden arts could not affect the Tao realm. In that case, the battle between supremacies was not too flashy, nor were there many earth-shaking divine powers and forbidden arts displayed. Most of the time, it was a competition of physical body, bloodline, essence spirit, dharma treasures, and the world of fused Tao seals. On second thought, Su Zimo was relieved. At that level of cultivation, Tao techniques had long been integrated into one's world. Their combat methods were close to simple and were compatible with the principle of the great Tao being simple. Su Zimo dodged while comprehending the changes of the Tao manifestation realm. To others, Su Zimo was naturally at a disadvantage and was suppressed by Black Rat sect master without any means to retaliate. Meng Shi frowned and said, "Fellow Taoist, Su's movement technique is indeed not bad. However, he's a human after all and his body and bloodline are ordinary. He wouldn't dare to fight against Black Rat sect master. If only he had a supremacy numinous treasure." Qin Qianhe muttered softly. However, she knew very well that Su Zimo had just ascended and did not have the time to refine the supremacy spirit treasure. Although she had a venerable one's spiritual treasure, it was her natal spiritual treasure. Even if she lent it to Su Zimo, it would not be of much use. At this moment, the poison in Su Rui's body had been purged, and his injuries were mostly healed. When he saw the two figures chasing each other on the battlefield, he couldn't help exclaiming in surprise. "Senior brother Su, what's wrong?" Worried about Su Zimo's safety, Qin Qianhe asked hurriedly. Su Rui's cultivation was higher, so he could see more clearly than others. "Fellow Taoist, Su seems to be holding back. Let's see how long you can hide." The Black Rat sect master bellowed as his attacks failed. His bloodline surged as he summoned a world to suppress Su Zimo. The space for Su Zimo to dodge was suddenly squeezed to the point that there was not much space left. Most of Su Zimo's attention was focused on comprehending the changes in battle at the Tao manifestation realm. His head was lowered the entire time as he dodged the attacks of the Black Rat sect master instinctively. At that moment, Su Zimo was enlightened when he sensed the pressure in the surrounding space. He raised his head and looked at the Black Rat sect master. When their gazes met, the Black Rat sect master's heart skipped a beat. No one knew better than him the pressure he felt in this battle. Right from the beginning, the green-robed man opposite him had not even looked at him once. However, he couldn't even touch the corner of the other party's robes. It was only when the green-robed man raised his head and looked at him that the Black Rat sect master felt his hair stand on end and a chill run down his spine. The next moment, Su Zimo attacked. He did not use any divine powers or secret skills or release any forbidden skills. He merely took a step forward and thrust two fingers like a sword towards the glabella of the Black Rat sect master. This time, it was extremely simple. When the Black Rat sect master saw that, his expression turned grim. Suddenly, he withdrew a saber from his storage bag and slashed it towards Su Zimo's palm. "Watch out!" Qin Qianhe could not help but exclaim. "This person isn't holding up a world. He's overestimating himself." Even Su Rui's heart sank. Both parties were extremely far apart and it was probably too late for him to hold up a world. Against the counterattack of the Black Rat sect master, Su Zimo did not dodge at all. In fact, he did not even change his posture and continued to thrust forward with his fingers closed. "You must have a death wish." The Black Rat sect master harumphed coldly and his eyes finally shone with excitement. A world was condensed behind him and the supremacy spirit treasure in his hands was augmented by a Tao seal as he slashed down with all his might in the direction of Su Zimo. The saber tore through the air with a tragic stench of blood. Just as it was about to slash Su Zimo's head, it suddenly paused. The saber was not the only one. Even the Black Rat sect master and the surrounding cultivators were stunned on the spot and looked at everything in disbelief. Instantly, it was as though time had stopped. The saber was clamped between two of Su Zimo's fingers and could not move at all. All of a sudden, a crisp sound echoed from the battlefield. Right in front of everyone, the saber was snapped into two. It was where Su Zimo's fingers were at. This, a supremacy spirit treasure, was snapped by two fingers of the green-robed man's body. Su Zimo's sword fingers continued forward and pierced towards the glabella of the Black Rat sect master. The Black Rat sect master was shocked and hurriedly channeled a world to block in front of him without hesitation. Ching! The sound of cloth being torn could be heard. The world of the Black Rat sect master was sliced into two by Su Zimo's sword fingers. No matter how strong his world was, it could not defend against Su Zimo's body. After fusing with the red karmic fire lotus, Qinglian's true body alone was enough to crush experts of the same cultivation realm without using her bloodline. "Save me!" The Black Rat sect master yelled with a pale expression. The moment he said that, Su Zimo's sword fingers had already arrived before him, and the sharpness of the sword fingers had even pierced his glabella. No matter how the Black Rat sect master dodged, the sword fingers were right before his eyes the entire time. "Stop! How dare you!" A series of roars sounded from the surroundings. The woman in makeup and the other 5 supremacies of Black Rat sect braced themselves and summoned their supremacy spirit treasures, prepared to join forces to stop Su Zimo. Unfortunately, they were still a step too late. Before the supremacies of Black Rat sect could finish their cries, a bloody hole appeared on the glabella of the Black Rat sect master. He was pierced. There was a thud. The essence spirit of the Black Rat sect master was destroyed and his corpse fell to the ground heavily. He was no longer alive. He was dead. The Black Rat sect master, who claimed to be a supreme supremacy, was stabbed to death by 2 fingers. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Up till this point of their cultivation, the supremacies had been through countless battles against experts of the same cultivation realm. However, none of them had witnessed such a method of combat. Su Zimo flicked his finger gently and flicked away the blood droplets on his fingertip, saying indifferently, "You call yourself supreme at such a standard? Isn't that a little too weak?" The remaining 6 supremacies of Black Rat sect had just whipped out their weapons and braced themselves when they heard that. Their faces turned pale and they were so scared that they did not dare to move at all. Today is the 4th chapter. Recently, I've been reorganizing the outline of Deqian, revising and deleting some settings and plots. I've kept everyone waiting. End of chapter. Chapter 3251. Good lad. Meng Shi was secretly speechless as he looked at Su Rue and Chen Qianhe, thinking to himself, what sort of a person did we bring back? A supremacy at the 3rd transformation of the Tao manifestation realm could not even last a single move against this man. Meng Shi recalled how he mocked Su Zimo earlier on and could not help but feel a lingering fear. If this man wanted to cause trouble for him, he would definitely die even if he had 10 lives. Su Rue and Chen Qianhe exchanged glances and could see the shock in each other's eyes. The woman in makeup had a terrible expression as she weighed the pros and cons in her heart. Eventually, she decided to avoid the limelight and said coldly, "Black Rat sect admits defeat today. We'll meet again in the future." Although Black Rat sect still had 6 supremacies and an army of tens of thousands, their morale was plunged with the death of their sect master and their morale was in chaos. Furthermore, even if the 6 of them joined forces with Pan Mu, they did not have any confidence against this green-robed man. With that said, the woman in makeup waved her hand and wanted to leave with everyone else. This time round, not only did Black Rat sect fail to take over Chaos Palace despite mobilizing so many people, they even lost their sect master. It could be said that they had lost all their dignity and strength. Su Zimo said, "Why wait? Let's settle all our grudges today." The group of people from Black Rat sect came with the intention of annihilating everyone. If not for the fact that he was here by chance, Chaos Palace would have been completely destroyed. Therefore, Su Zimo did not intend to let them off either. If he allowed a tiger to return to the mountains, it would be inevitable that there would be trouble in the future. The expressions of the supremacies of Black Rat sect changed when they heard that. Although that person's tone was calm, everyone could hear the killing intent behind it. The woman in makeup channeled her bloodline and beast patterns appeared on her face as she narrowed her eyes. "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean by that? Are you trying to keep us here? There are 7 supremacies on our side. If we attack together, you might not be able to escape unscathed." When he said those words, in terms of aura, he was already 30% weaker. Su Rui, Chen Qianhe and Meng Shi exchanged glances and stood out at the same time. Although they were unwilling to continue fighting against the Black Rat sect, they would not back down since Su Zimo had made his intentions clear. Su Rui said solemnly, "There are still 3 of us in the Primal Chaos Palace. If we fight, it will be 7 against 4. The woman in makeup coldly snorted, "Don't forget, I have an army of tens of thousands behind me. If all of them rush at me, how many of the 3,000 plus people from your Primal Chaos Palace will be able to survive?" Su Rui's face sank. This was also the reason why he didn't want to confront the Black Rat sect head-on. On the battlefield of the Venerable Ones, in a 7 versus 4 situation, they still had a powerhouse like Su Zimo on their side. The Black Rat sect would not be able to gain any advantage. However, if they were to be entangled with the enemy, the others from the Primal Chaos Palace would definitely not be able to withstand the assault of the Black Rat sect's army of tens of thousands. At that time, the Primal Chaos Palace would definitely suffer countless casualties. All at once? Su Zimo suddenly laughed. He moved and said, "Let's see who dares to move." When he said the word, Su Zimo had already arrived in front of the woman in makeup and suddenly attacked. He was way too fast. The movement technique of the sect master of Black Rat sect was fast and agile. However, Su Zimo's movement technique was several times faster than that. The woman in makeup was a supremacy at the 3rd transformation of the Dao manifestation realm after all. Her reaction was fast enough as she supported a world and retreated. However, her world was still pierced by Su Zimo's sword finger. Making use of that opportunity, the woman in makeup spun and appeared behind another supremacy of Black Rat sect. Right from the beginning, the supremacy could not react in time and had his head pierced by Su Zimo's sword finger, becoming a scapegoat for the woman in makeup. The moment he said, "Look," Su Zimo's sword finger changed direction and a sword beam shot out, slicing the other supremacy of Black Rat sect into 2. Even Su Rui and the other 2 who were standing beside Su Zimo were stunned, let alone the supremacies of Black Rat sect. A figure flashed before them and a green figure charged into the crowd. In a flash, 5 supremacies of Black Rat sect fell. The entire process happened so fast that Su Zimo only finished his last word after he said, "Let's see who dares to move." The 5 supremacies of Black Rat sect were all dead on the spot. The mountain was in an uproar. 5 supremacies died with a single sentence and 5 words. A single word meant a life. The woman in makeup was right. The 7 supremacies were fighting against the supremacies of Chaos Palace, and Black Rat sect's army would take advantage of the situation to attack. However, Su Zimo did not give them the chance. The battle that everyone imagined ended before it even started. Of the supremacies of Black Rat sect, only the woman in makeup and Pan Mu who defected were left. When they saw that, the army of Black Rat sect was stunned on the spot. Those scoundrels did not even dare to turn and escape, let alone attack Chaos Palace. They were afraid that their actions would attract Su Zimo's attention. That's it. Meng Shi was in a daze for a moment when he saw that. The 3 of them did not even have the chance to attack. Why were supremacies as weak as 3-year-old children in front of this person? Su Rui's heart skipped a beat, and he could not help but recall that they encountered fewer dangers on their way back from the Flying Immortal Altar. At that time, the 3 of them thought that they were lucky. Now that he thought about it, it was probably because of this person. Pan Mu was already shivering in fear. The woman in makeup was pale as well. Looking at Su Zimo, who was walking over slowly, her breathing turned heavy as she shouted, "What are you trying to do? Why can't kill me? I'm telling you, I'm a clansman of the 4th leader of Myriad Beast Ridge. If you dare to kill me, Myriad Beast Ridge will definitely tear you into pieces and raze Chaos Palace to the ground." Pan Mu seemed to have thought of that as well and suddenly raised his head to look at Su Rui and the other 2. "You guys have offended Myriad Beast Ridge. The person you guys found is already in big trouble." When they heard the woman in makeup mention Myriad Beast Ridge, the expressions of Su Rui and the other 2 changed as fear flashed through their eyes. Su Zimo smiled faintly. "You have a backer?" The woman in makeup snorted. You just ascended to the Great Thousand World, so you probably haven't heard of Myriad Beast Ridge. Why don't you ask Su Rui? Su Zimo did not know anything about Myriad Beast Ridge, so he turned to look at Su Rui and the other two. Su Rui said in a deep voice, Myriad Beast Ridge is a second-grade force in the Huagai continent. It said that the 4 leaders are all heavenly venerates and have the wolf, tiger, and leopard races under them. The number of beasts is in the hundreds of thousands. For heavenly venerates, Su Zimo muttered. Heavenly venerates were only at the lesser Dao comprehension realm, so they were not a threat to him. Although his cultivation was only at the 3rd transformation of the Dao manifestation realm, his physical body had fused with Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus. He had the absolute strength to kill those above his level. Furthermore, his primordial spirit had already reached the greater Dao comprehension realm, making him a great heavenly venerate. It said that the 4th leader of Myriad Beast Ridge is a leopard race heavenly venerate. The patterns on this woman's face are leopard patterns. If she's related to the 4th leader of Myriad Beast Ridge, I'm afraid we can't kill her. Chapter 3252. Chen Qian has sent a voice transmission. We're already at odds with Black Rat sect. Even if we let her go, won't she make use of the strength of Myriad Beast Ridge to take revenge on Chaos Palace? That's a problem as well. Su Rui nodded. Now, this leopard lady had suddenly mentioned the Myriad Beast Ridge, and it instantly caused this matter to become extremely troublesome. They could not kill that woman, but they did not dare to let her go either. Su Rui said deeply, right now, there are only 2 solutions. The first is for her to swear a Dao oath not to take revenge on Chaos Palace. The second is for us to continue fleeing and leave this place. Chen Qianhe and Meng Shi were silent. Neither of these 2 methods were good. Even if the woman swore a Dao oath, they would not be able to avoid a calamity if news of this spread to Myriad Beast Ridge. If they continued fleeing, Chaos Palace would have to migrate once more and they would have to face countless dangers along the way. It had to be known that every time the primal Chaos Palace fled, the number of people would be greatly reduced. Chen Qianhe sighed gently. Why don't we continue fleeing? If fellow Taoist Su is willing to stay, I believe that there's still hope for Chaos Palace to rise. The 3 of them looked at Su Zimo in unison. Although Su Zimo had only been in Chaos Palace for less than a day, the 3 of them were inclined to let Su Zimo make the final decision. After all, they and Chaos Palace were only able to survive because of Su Zimo. Su Zimo remained silent. He did not take the worries of Su Rui and the other 2 to heart. He was thinking about something else. Instead of waiting passively for Myriad Beast Ridge to come knocking on his door, he might as well take drastic measures to solve the problem once and for all. Given the state that Chaos Palace was in, it was not a good idea for them to remain in this mountain. There were no origin ores in the surroundings either. Since Myriad Beast Ridge was a second-grade faction, they must have occupied some origin ores and built on a large scale. They would not be in such dire straits like Chaos Palace. Furthermore, Su Zimo had cultivated to the 3rd transformation of the Dao manifestation realm and had yet to fight against a heavenly venerable expert. As such, he did not know what level his combat strength was at. There were 4 heavenly venerables in Myriad Beast Ridge and he could use them to test his strength. When the leopard lady saw that Su Rui and the other 2 were communicating with the azure-robed man with their spiritual sense, but the latter didn't say a single word or reply, her thoughts started to run wild. She was indeed from the leopard clan that came from the Myriad Beast Ridge, but in reality, she did not have any blood relations with that leopard clan Empyrean. She did not know him at all. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married the leader of the Black Rat sect and lowered herself to a 3rd-rate force. Just now, she had been quick-witted and brought out the leopard race Empyrean of the Myriad Beast Ridge to take a risk. As expected, if her guess wasn't wrong, Su Rui and the other 2 should be telling this man how powerful the Myriad Beast Ridge was. The green-robed man remained silent the entire time. It was likely that he was also fearful and apprehensive. We can't push him too hard, lest he decides to fight to the death. Suddenly, the leopard lady said coldly, "Don't worry, fellow Taoist. As long as you're willing to let me go, I can swear in front of everyone that I won't ask the 10,000 Beasts Ridge to take revenge on you. I've already expressed my sincerity. What happens next is up to you. In reality, the venerable leopard lady had left herself some leeway with this Tao oath. Even if she didn't ask the 10,000 Beasts Ridge for revenge in the future, she could ask other forces for help. No matter what, she had to make the Chaos Palace pay for today's grudge. Su Rue and the other two exchanged glances and were tempted. If they could avoid escaping without becoming enemies with the 10,000 Beasts Ridge, it would naturally be for the best. Of course, it was up to Su Zimo to choose to believe in the leopard lady or continue escaping. Fellow Taoist Su, make a decision. We'll listen to you. Su Rue said in a deep voice. There's another way. Su Zimo suddenly said. Oh. The eyes of Su Rue and the other two lit up. Su Zimo's earlier methods had already convinced the three of them. His idea would definitely be better. Su Zimo said, I'll head to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge and communicate with the leopard race Empyrean to see if we can resolve this matter. The moment he said that, the entire place fell silent. Su Rue and the other two were dumbfounded as they looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a lunatic. Is there something wrong with this person's head? The leopard lady looked at Su Zimo with a strange gaze as well. What was he trying to communicate with? He was a Tao manifestation supremacy who could not even meet the leopard race Empyrean. And he wanted to communicate with the fourth leader of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge? What rights did he have? He would probably be devoured alive by the demon beasts of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge before he could even meet the leopard race Empyrean. Of course, those thoughts merely flashed through the leopard lady's mind. She was not stupid enough to provoke Su Zimo. Su Rue coughed gently. Fellow Taoist Su, why you must be joking. I'm not joking. Su Zimo said in a serious tone. Chen Qianhe could not help but remind, fellow Taoist Su, you've just ascended and haven't seen a heavenly venerate before. You don't know how strong they are. The demons of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge are entrenched and their corpses are as thick as forests. You might not even be able to meet the leopard race Empyrean if you head there. Chen Qianhe's words were rather tactful. She was just short of saying that Su Zimo should not take things too hard and seek his own death. Meng Shi was a little anxious as well. Those heavenly venerate experts are definitely not kind and treat our lives like grass. Why would they be kind enough to communicate with you? Fellow Taoist Su, don't be too naive. Chen Qianhe turned back and glared at him. Actually, Meng Shi regretted his words the moment he said that. His words had always been harsh. Earlier on, he was afraid that Su Zimo would head to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge without knowing the dangers. In his anxiety, he did not pay attention to his words. Su Zimo was indifferent and replied casually, it would naturally be best if we could communicate. Su Zimo only finished half of his sentence. Su Rue and the other two shuddered when they heard that. What was going on? If they could not communicate, what else did this person want? Are you really going to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge yourself? The leopard lady was secretly delighted, but she asked without batting an eyelid. The fact that the green-robed man was courting death was exactly what she wanted. It would save her the trouble of taking revenge in the future. Of course, I have to bring you along. Su Zimo said, I don't know the way. Furthermore, this matter is related to you. All right. The leopard lady agreed immediately. Indeed, you have guts. Impressive. The leopard lady praised but sneered in her heart. Although she had nothing to do with the fourth leader of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge, as long as this person dared to step foot in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge, he would be torn apart by the beasts before he could even see the leopard race's heavenly venerate. After all, she had the bloodline of the leopard race and had a high chance of surviving in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge. Naturally, the leopard lady's schemes could not be hidden from Su Zimo. Suddenly, Su Zimo raised his hand and slapped the leopard lady's head, causing her essence spirit to almost dissipate and her cultivation to be crippled by more than half. The leopard lady spat out blood and sat on the ground weakly. She looked at Su Zimo with resentment and screamed, "What are you doing?" "I don't like being threatened," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "I'm teaching you a lesson." Su Rui and the other two wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The three of them sighed. Now that things had come to this, there was no way to negotiate with the 10,000 Beasts Ridge anymore. End of chapter. Chapter 3253. Su Rui took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Su, I'll go with you." Su. Qin Qianhe and Meng Shi came to Su Zimo's side as well. Since the 10,000 Beast Ridge was a tiger's den with a slim chance of survival, they couldn't let Su Zimo face it alone while they hid here and stayed out of it. "We'll go too." The remaining 3,000-odd people from Chaos Palace stood out as well. On one hand, they were grateful that Su Zimo had just saved them. On the other hand, for some reason, they had an inexplicable trust in Su Zimo. Naturally, those living beings did not know that it was because of Qinglian's bloodline. Pan Mu retreated carefully, wanting to escape. All of a sudden, a figure flashed and Su Rui was already behind him, asking expressionlessly, "Pan Mu, you want to leave without giving us an explanation?" "What explanation?" Seeing that there was no hope of escaping, Pan Mu threw caution to the wind and shouted, "A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. I've guarded the Chaos Palace for so many years and I truly can't see any hope. I don't want to continue fleeing with you guys. I want to change my way of living. What Chaos Sacred Ground? It's nothing but an illusory legend. Until now, only you guys still believe in it." Pan Mu was considered an elder of Chaos Palace and had many years of friendship with Su Rui and the other two. Su Rui was clearly still thinking about their old relationship and was struggling in his heart, unable to do it. Chen Qianhe sighed with a complicated expression. Meng Shi was furious as he gritted his teeth. Everyone has their own aspirations. If you want to leave, we won't stop you. But why did you betray the Chaos Palace? Su Rui and the other two still had a final strand of hope for Pan Mu. "So what if I didn't betray you?" Pan Mu sneered. "Do I have to follow you guys to the 10,000 Beast Ridge to die? You guys are loyal and are willing to die, but I don't want to die. The three of you trust this outsider who just ascended so much. The Chaos Palace will be buried by you guys eventually. That's fine." Su Zimo suddenly smiled. "Bring him along to the 10,000 Beast Ridge so that he can die with a clear understanding." Very good, very good." Venerable Leopard Lady smiled bitterly and said, "If all of you from the Primal Chaos Palace send yourselves to me, none of you will be able to escape." In truth, the cultivators of the Primal Chaos Palace didn't have high cultivations. If they stayed here, there was a chance they would encounter other dangers. Su Zimo would be able to take care of them if they went to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge together. Moreover, if they could occupy the Myriad Beasts Ridge, the cultivators from the Primal Chaos Palace would be able to stay there. "Let's go." Su Zimo took the Black Rat Sect Master and the others' storage pouches, collected the world fragments, and briefly organized the battlefield. After that, he took out an immortal boat and carried Su Rui's trio, Venerable Leopard Lady, Pan Mu, and more than 3,000 people from the Primal Chaos Palace toward the Myriad Beasts Ridge. On the immortal boat, Su Rui and the other two went up to Su Zimo and expressed their gratitude. "There's no need for that." Su Zimo smiled and handed Qin Qianhe a storage pouch. "Thank you for your origin stones, fellow Qin." Qin Qianhe subconsciously took it and opened the storage bag to take a look. There were hundreds of origin stones inside. This is too precious." Qin Qianhe hurriedly declined. Apart from Su Zimo's 100-odd origin stones, there were also origin stones that he had just collected from the sect master of Black Rat Sect and the others. Su Rui and Meng Shi's eyes burned with envy. The few origin stones that Qin Qianhe had given Su Zimo were now 100 times more valuable. Su Zimo said, "I've reached the peak of the third transformation of the Tao manifestation stage, and I don't need origin stones anymore. I have no use for these." After the third transformation of the Tao manifestation stage, one had to comprehend the essence of the great Tao if they wanted to take another step forward. No matter how much Genesis Qi they absorbed, if they could not comprehend the essence of the great Tao, they would not be able to break through the bottleneck. Qin Qianhe no longer declined. She was a little nervous as she probed, Can I share these origin stones with the others? Of course. Su Zimo nodded with a smile. These are already your origin stones. You can do whatever you want with them. Chen Qianhe heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Su Rui and Meng Shi at the side. Let's keep some of these origin stones and distribute them to the other Chaos Palace Imperial Lords. Although the origin stones were precious, Chen Qianhe did not intend to keep them for herself. Instead, she wanted to share them with her fellow sect members. Su Rui, Meng Shi and the others accepted the origin stones happily, and their worries for this trip lessened slightly. 3 days later, the group from Chaos Palace finally arrived at the Myriad Beast Ridge. Before they even set foot on the Myriad Beast Ridge, they could already smell a strong stench of blood that was suffocating. From afar, the Myriad Beast Ridge was filled with white bones that shone with light. No one knew how many corpses were buried there. There was a large patch of black and red between the mountains, and not a single blade of grass grew. Everyone from Chaos Palace had grim expressions. Su Rui and the other two were worried once more. Fellow Taoist Su, are you really going to meet the heavenly venerate of the leopard race? Su Rui could not help but remind, if we enter the Myriad Beast Ridge, there's no turning back. Su Zimo laughed. What's there to turn back for? Chaos Palace will be staying here from now on. Su Rui laughed bitterly. Everyone took it as a joke and no one took it seriously. The leopard lady's cultivation had been crippled. Her heart was filled with endless resentment as she cursed. In my opinion, you ants from the primal Chaos Palace will all turn into bones and flesh and stay in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge forever. When they arrived at the mountain gate, Su Zimo put away the immortal boat and descended with everyone from Chaos Palace. Who's there? Tens of thousands of demon cultivators appeared in front of the Myriad Beast Ridge's mountain gate. All of them had surging demonic chi and looked wary. The 4 people in the lead were all Tao Manifestation Supremacies. Good lad. Meng Shi was secretly shocked. The Myriad Beast Ridge is so strong. There are so many people guarding the mountain gate and even supremacies. Su Zimo was slightly surprised as well. Normally speaking, there was no need for such a formation to guard the mountain gate. Furthermore, the expressions of the demon cultivators of the Myriad Beast Ridge seemed as though they were facing a formidable enemy, as though they knew that they were coming. Interesting. For a moment, Su Zimo could not figure it out either. He carried the Supremacy Leopard Lady who was still cursing to the front of the sect and declared, I am Su Zimo of the Chaos Palace. I would like to meet the 4 leaders of the Myriad Beast Ridge. Su Rui and the others felt their hearts skip a beat when they heard that. They wanted to stop him, but it was too late. It was one thing for him to visit the 4th leader. However, wasn't he a little too arrogant to visit all 4 leaders at once? Furthermore, the 4 leaders of Myriad Beast Ridge were heavenly venerates. If a 3rd-grade faction like them were to suddenly visit with thousands of people, they would only attract the hostility of Myriad Beast Ridge. Furthermore, fellow Taoist Su's tone was way too casual. He did not use any polite words such as sorry for the trouble and sorry for the sudden visit. Su Rui and the other 2 did not know that Su Zimo was already being polite by coming to the mountain gate and saying that. Chaos Palace? When the 4 supremacies of Myriad Beast Ridge heard that, they frowned and exchanged glances with puzzled expressions. Everyone, please wait for a moment. I'll go in and report. The 4 supremacies communicated with their spirit consciousnesses before one of them cupped his fists and turned to leave. Su Rui and the other 2 were stunned. Myriad Beast Ridge was that easy to deal with? End of chapter. Chapter 3254. Myriad Beast Ridge. 4 huge stone pillars were engraved with the totems of the 4 beast races, the wolf, the tiger, and the leopard. Their ferocious faces and demonic auras filled the place, forming a solemn Myriad Beast Hall. At that moment, the 3 leaders of the Myriad Beast Ridge, the wolf, tiger, and leopard heavenly venerates, were sitting side by side at the top of the hall. The surroundings were silent, and the atmosphere was stifling. The 3 of them had heavy expressions, clearly troubled. Humph! After a long while, The tiger race Empyrean seemed to be unable to hold it in any longer. He slammed the table and stood up, scolding, "Isn't that Black Goat Ridge's appetite a little too big? They want us to hand over the 9 origin mines of the Myriad Beast Ridge as soon as they open their mouths. If there's no other way, we'll fight it out with them." The Myriad Beast Ridge only had a total of 9 origin mines. The Black Goat Ridge asking for the 9 origin mines of the Myriad Beast Ridge was practically asking for the foundation of the Myriad Beast Ridge. The Leopard Heavenly Venerate also looked at the Wolf Heavenly Venerate and asked, "Second brother, do we fight or retreat? You decide." "How should we fight?" The Wolf Heavenly Venerate frowned. "The Black Goat Ridge has 2 Grand Heavenly Venerates and more than 10 Heavenly Venerates under them. We can't win it all. Are we going to give up the foundation that we worked so hard to build to them?" The Tiger Heavenly Venerate was indignant. The Wolf Heavenly Venerate said in a low voice, "Let's see if Big Brother can break through the bottleneck and become a Grand Heavenly Venerate. If Big Brother can take another step and become a Grand Heavenly Venerate, we'll have some room to negotiate with the Black Goat Ridge. I believe that the 2 Grand Heavenly Venerates of the Black Goat Ridge will have some scruples. There might not be enough time." The Leopard Heavenly Venerate shook his head slightly and asked, "What if the Black Goat Ridge comes knocking on our door before Big Brother breaks through? We'll drag it out if we can. If we can't." After a pause, the Wolf Heavenly Venerate said helplessly, "We can only give up on the Myriad Beast Ridge and find another way out. Given our abilities, even if we leave this world, we can still make a name for ourselves in the Huagai continent. If we all break through one day and become Grand Heavenly Venerates, we can still come back and take everything back." "Second brother is right." The Leopard Race Empyrean nodded. The Wolf Clan Heavenly Venerable said, "Tell the little ones below to be more alert and tighten their defenses. If the Black Goat Ridge goes crazy and launches a surprise attack, we can also be prepared." "Second brother, don't worry." The Tiger Race Empyrean said, "I've arranged for 4 supremacies and over 10,000 demonic beasts to guard the mountain gate. Increase the patrols around the 10,000 Beasts Ridge as well. If there's any trouble, we'll be the first to know." At this moment, a venerable one rushed in from outside the door with a strange expression. The 3 celestial venerables were discussing the Black Goat Ridge when they noticed the strange expression on the newcomer's face. Could it be that something had happened? "What is it?" the Wolf Clan Heavenly Venerable asked in a deep voice. The venerable said loudly, "Outside the mountain gate, there is Su Zimo who claims to be from the Primal Chaos Palace. He wishes to pay his respects to the 3 leaders." "Su Zimo?" The Leopard Race Empyrean was a bit puzzled. He looked at the 2 beside him and asked, "Who are you? I've never heard of you before." The other 2 celestial venerables shook their heads slightly as well. The Tiger Race Empyrean frowned. "I've heard of that Primal Chaos Palace. It's a 3rd-grade faction that's almost destroyed. There hasn't been any news of them for a long time." "What are they doing here?" the Wolf Race Empyrean asked again. "What's the cultivation realm of that Su Zimo?" "A supremacy at 3rd transformation of the Tao manifestation realm." The supremacy outside the hall replied. The Leopard Race Empyrean asked, "How many people are here from the Primal Chaos Palace? What are their cultivation realms?" The supremacy outside the door replied, "The ones with the highest cultivation realms are at 3rd transformation of the Tao manifestation realm. There are 2 of them and a few other supremacies. The remaining 3,000-odd people are all below the supremacy realm. They don't seem threatening at all." "Motherf asterisk cur." The Tiger Race Empyrean cursed and waved his hand impatiently. "Where did these ants come from? How dare they meet the 3 of us? Kill them and share them among you brothers." "Thank you, 3rd leader." The supremacy bowed and retreated, about to leave. Right then, the Wolf Race Empyrean's heart stirred and shouted, "Hold on!" The supremacies outside the hall stopped in their tracks. The Tiger Race Empyrean and Leopard Race Empyrean turned to look at the Wolf Race Empyrean with questioning looks. The Heavenly Venerate of the Wolf Clan narrowed his eyes and asked, "What did the person who came say? Repeat everything in full detail." That person said that he was Su Zimo from the Primal Chaos Palace and wished to meet the 4 leaders of the Myriad Beast Ridge. The Venerable One repeated the story without changing a word. Upon hearing that, the leopard race Empyrean could tell that something was amiss. What a boastful tone. It was clear that a supremacy at the Tao manifestation realm had ill intentions for him to say such words. The wolf race Empyrean and leopard race Empyrean exchanged glances and thought of the Black Goat Ridge at the same time. The wolf race Empyrean pondered for a moment and just now, he instructed, "Invite this Su Zimo and the people he brought over here. Also, arrange for some good wine and dishes to be served together." "Yes, sir." Although the supremacy was puzzled, he still agreed. When the wolf race Empyrean saw that the person did not seem too concerned, his expression darkened as he hollered, "Luo Feng, listen up. Invite those people in. You bunch of dogs, be smart and pay attention to your etiquette. Don't offend these esteemed guests." Luo Feng replied hurriedly. There was no way he could understand that the tiger race Empyrean had just asked them to eat up the group of people from the Primal Chaos Palace. In the blink of an eye, they became esteemed guests. After Luo Feng left, the tiger race Empyrean was still confused and asked with a frown, "Second brother, fourth brother, how did those ants from the Primal Chaos Palace become esteemed guests?" The leopard race Empyrean heaved a sigh of relief and exclaimed, "Second brother, your reaction is still fast. We nearly fell for the Black Goat Ridge's trap." "What do you mean?" the tiger race Empyrean asked. The leopard race Empyrean explained, "There's an 80% chance that Su Zimo is an envoy sent by the Black Goat Ridge. If we kill that group of people, we'll be exposed and there'll be no turning back." Levitating Goat Peak is truly sinister. The tiger race Empyrean broke out in cold sweat when he heard that and gritted his teeth. No wonder a supremacy at third transformation of Tao manifestation dares to be so arrogant. So, he has the backing of the Black Goat Ridge. However, speaking of which, the leopard race Empyrean continued, the Black Goat Ridge is looking down on us too much by sending a few supremacies over to talk to the 4 of us. The 3 of them were supremacies and leaders of their respective factions. Under normal circumstances, the Black Goat Ridge would at least send heavenly venerate experts over as a show of respect. "Third brother, fourth brother, there's no need to be angry." The wolf race Empyrean had a calm expression. "Let's see why Su Zimo is here. If he has any requests, we'll try our best to satisfy them. We just have to delay it as much as possible and wait for the results of Big Brother's seclusion to break through the bottleneck. Don't complicate things." "Understood." The tiger and leopard race Empyreans replied in unison. "You're tuning in to the Passion Page's YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.